As the worst weekend of football in recent local memory was coming to a close, two massive changes were coming to fruition about the same time. The bombshell rumors of potential firing of Brian Kelly, well, they began to surface about the time the Saints and Tampa Bay Buccaneers were kicking off in the Superdome. On the second possession of the second half, Saints coach Kellen Moore made the switch we all knew was coming at some point. Spencer Rattler was out. Tyler Shough was in. Within minutes after the clock struck zeros on the Black and Gold's 23-3 loss that dropped them to 1-7, on the same floor that LSU had won its last three national championships, the announcement spread across the social media that Kelly had indeed been fired. A momentous moment in Louisiana sports history. One will have lasting effects, and the other, well, we've got about 10 weeks to find out. One thing we knew here for sure is that we needed the trusted, reliable voices to offer their analysis of the moment. So, of course, we turn to Mike Detillier and our own Scott Rabalais. For LSU, we ask, why now? Was it a surprise? Will the buyout affect the next hire? And who exactly are the leading candidates? Who shouldn't be considered? How long will it take to get the Tigers back into the national championship picture, since that is the only outcome that Tigers fans will accept? As for the Saints, the big question is obvious. Is the move to Tyler Shough a permanent one? Should it be? And if so, what would be realistic expectations? We hear clips from Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore, our experts, and of course, Gabe Henderson is here to share his thoughts, and we will sprinkle in Monday Monday, all on an absolutely jam-packed Dattitude podcast, which starts right now.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? Anything happen this weekend? Sometimes even when you know something is going to happen, something huge is going to happen, it still can be a surprise. And I know a lot of you aren't surprised, but I'll tell you, the past 20 hours or so have been crazy. And that's why this morning, there is Dattitude, episode number 433, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, October the 27th, 2025. If you're new here, we welcome you. We thank you. We welcome you to the Dattitude family. And I am your host, Jim Derry, 35 plus years now on the New Orleans sports media scene. I thank you for being a part of it all. And very, very quickly, most of you know, if you've been here before, what is special about our show is that you talk to us, we talk back. So feel free to type in your comments. I know today is usually Monday. And what that means for people who are new here is it's basically just me and the comment stream and Gabe Henderson towards the end of the show, but that's not what today is going to be. Today, obviously, with the momentous news that Brian Kelly has been fired and the switch to Tyler Shough, Mike Detillier is coming on at 11:15, so around thereabouts, which means I got 10 minutes to talk to you and you talk back. Now, when Mike is here, I will show some of the comments. Scott Rabalais coming on after that. We've got 21 minutes of a recorded interview. Scott has got so many things going on today, and both of our guests do. Mike Detillier started at 5:30 this morning, I believe, on the Armed Forces Radio Network. If you're a MASH fan, you think, on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You know exactly what I'm talking about when I do that. And so that our guest, we had to accommodate him any way we could, and Rab, the only way he could come on was by recording. So that'll come on after Mike Detillier. We'll stay on as long as y'all want us to this morning. I know I usually put a time limit on things, and I try to get out of here within an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. And look, if today's show lasts longer, it lasts longer. We'll see what the crowd is like and how long y'all want to talk. I will take as many comments as we possibly can. You are a part of the show as much as our guest or Gabe or even me. That's what this show is about. Okay. That is coming up. Again, Mike Detillier going to be on at first in about 10 minutes from now. We'll take as many comments as we can before. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Just takes a second. Click the little like button, the thumbs up, whatever it is. And, of course, click the little bell. We are normally on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday live at 11 a.m. Central Time. We've got a strange week this week. Today we're on today. Who knows how long? And then we're not going to be on again until Thursday, and that is our only other show this week. We're taking Friday off, and our guest, we're cramming Mono E Monday and guest Wednesday all into one show today. Next week, we'll be back to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All right, you know what is on the show today? I've told you about it. Mike Detillier, Scott Rabalais, Brian Kelly fired. Is anyone surprised? I got to be honest. When I joked with Gabe before, I walked in the door basically from the Saints game, and my wife says, "You were wrong." I mean, is she taking joy in the fact that I was wrong too? I was wrong about Brian Kelly, I guess right about Tyler Shough, so I was batting 500 yesterday. Is that good? I don't know. But I did not see it coming. In fact, earlier in the day, I commented on someone else's Facebook stream, something about Brian Kelly being fired. And I'm like, there's 56 million reasons why he's not going to be fired. The rumor during the day was that it was going to be Joe Sloan that was going to be fired. And then towards the end of the Saints game, it was clear that it was going to be Brian Kelly and not just Joe Sloan. Joe Sloan, by the way, was fired this morning. So interestingly enough. All right, we're going to get to comments. You don't want to hear me just talk today. I know y'all want to be as part of it, as part of the show as much as anything. So before we get to the rest of the show, let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, they're a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. That's you, someone you know, someone you love, whatever the case may be. It's time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ryan Hemelt. They will start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. From there, you will be well informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. What happens after that? No, not the rest of your life yet. Come on, man. We'll fill you in more later in the show. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right. Mike Detillier in about 8 minutes. He is not yet in the green room. Let me get to the comments, or at least as many of them as I can get. This morning, it's still doing that weird thing with YouTube where it's got the @ sign and it's not giving me their name, although I know who this is. How did this get changed? Hold on real quick. Let me change this. I hate to do this live on the air, but I abhor when someone changes my style here. We all share the same StreamYard platform, so it is what it is. All right, anyway, Rocky. A wonderful no BK Monday. Good morning, Dattitude fam. Does the Shough finish the season to see if anything is there? We're going to get to all that. We're also going to get to a little bit of where does LSU go next? But you got to remember, as we talk about who might be next for LSU, and I'm obviously going to talk to about it both with Mike Detillier and Scott Rabalais. But who's next? They still got to finish the season. We're not going to. I'd be very, very, very surprised if you find out, even get inklings of who the next coach is going to be before at least this regular season is done. You may find out before a potential bowl game or whatever, but you're not going to find out who's going to coach this team next year until at the earliest December. That's just no. I was wrong about Brian Kelly being fired. 56 million reasons why I was wrong. But it is important to talk about. And I'm going to tell you who I don't want it to. If the regulars know who I don't want it to be, that's for sure. I will tell you who I want it to be. Who would be on my short list? All that coming up. Tyler Shough, 123. William, I believe, says, morning. During his press conference, Moore was non-committal about sticking with Shough going forward. Do I think he lets Shough play out the season to get a real evaluation that goes back to Rat? And later on in the show, I mean, of course, I'm going to give you my opinion on that. But later on in the show, when we get to the Saints portion of the show, which is going to be later, I'm going to play a clip from both Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore, and I will tell you why I think that decision has been made already. I know they're going to go through the whole, we're going to take 48 hours to evaluate the process, but they're not taking 48 hours. I think that decision has been made. UBN, anything happen to talk about today? Yeah, nothing at all. Brian Cavett, welcome. What a great Monday. Why does it feel like 1999? Oh, because you've been copying off my paper, Brian Cavett. It's okay. I'm glad you did. Why does it feel like 1999? Oh, because the Saints and LSU stink. Feels like Kelly stole his money. I don't agree with that at all. Not even a little bit. I'm going to tell you, do you realize, and it was in Scott Rabalais' comment this morning, column. Did it say comment or column? Anyway, Scott Rabalais in his column this morning brought out an excellent point about Brian Kelly and his winning percentage, which is significantly higher than Charlie McClendon's winning percentage, who's in the LSU Sports Hall of Fame. Just saying, to show you. Now, I'm not saying things are way different today than they were in the late 1960s and 1970s. I understand that. Nor am I saying that they shouldn't be different, because they should be different. The playoff has changed everything. And look, I get the whole opinion of, it's national championship or bust. I think that's a little much. I mean, look, you should always be in the running for a national championship. Now, that being said, at LSU, you should hardly ever. I don't know if there's an excuse for not ever being in the running as you end October to be in the playoffs. And so with that being said, that's a good reason. I mean, if you're not in the running for the playoffs at LSU, then you shouldn't be here. So on that side of things, when you lose 49-25 to Texas A&M, a team that not only will be in the playoffs, but is a national championship contender and has changed their entire fortune in a short period of time, you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't accept that sort of football, that sort of play. The fact that LSU was not competitive at all in the second, I mean, not at all. I mean, they didn't show up in the second half. And honestly, they were very lucky to be leading at halftime. So when you go through that, you got to make this change. I guess to that extent, I was surprised that they actually pulled the trigger, but I knew, even though I said on Friday, and I've been saying, that Brian Kelly wouldn't be fired because of $56 million. It's the one thing to lose. It's another thing to go out there and be embarrassed on your home field, like Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers were on Saturday night. However, that being said, Brian Kelly doesn't get nearly enough credit. Again, should he have been fired? Absolutely. Should have been fired. It was the right move to make. You had to make it when you make it. But for fans not to realize what he brought this program out of, the depths of where was this team headed? Where was LSU football headed before Brian Kelly got here? You got to remember, it was a major mess, okay? It was a major mess when Brian Kelly got here. And he helped bring respectability back to LSU. Respectability isn't nearly enough at LSU. It's never going to be enough. Again, nor should it be. I understand, especially in the day of the playoff. It shouldn't be enough. But he brought this team back to respectability, because in my opinion, they were headed down an abyss that I don't know how long it would have taken to climb out of. That's where they were. We'll see. Going forward, the next coach is going to have a lot on his plate. You think of the 6 of the last 7 coaches to coach at LSU were all fired. They weren't just fired. They were fired during the season. You think about that. No one, except for Nick Saban, the great Nick Saban, who is the god of college football. Instead, except for Nick Saban, they were all fired. This next coach is going to have a lot on his plate. I know we got a ton of comments, and I apologize that it's not a typical Monday and I can't get to all of them. I love you all, and we are going to get to a lot of them as we go along here this morning. But I got to get to my man. We got to get to the experts and talk about obviously the big news of the day. We're going to get to the Saints later. But Mike Detillier, I appreciate you so much, especially in short notice. You were just here last week. You're back here this morning, and you're making your rounds. I know a lot of phone calls. Your day started very early this morning. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us on that.
Yeah, it was early. It was 4:30 this morning, so I woke up a little bit earlier for the Armed Forces Radio Network. But it's been a steady roll since. But, yeah, we all good. We all good.
As I said before you got here this morning, and only MASH fans will understand what I'm talking about, are people really old, on the Armed Forces Radio Network, if you know what I'm talking about there. All right, Mike Detillier, let's talk about the big news of the day. Obviously, I am going to touch on Saints before you leave, but just very briefly. But obviously the big news, and I think while I'll get your reaction on what you thought after Saturday, but heading into Saturday, I think you and I were on the same page that there were 56 million reasons why Brian Kelly wasn't going to get fired. But after Saturday's performance, were you surprised that it happened on Sunday?
The visuals and the optics of everything that happened that day, at the end of the third quarter, Jim, my wife knows zero about football. Really. She'll ask questions and I'll answer them, but she really doesn't get into details. At the end of the third quarter, she looked at me and said, I got a feeling you are going to have a real hectic next 3 days with this. And I said, I think he's gone. And she just sort of glared at me and was like, well, what about the $53 million? I said, at this point, it's irrelevant. And I know it's hard to say, but it was what it was to see what had happened. You came on with us Saturday as we're doing our Tiger Tailgate show. It is the largest crowd in 4 years we've ever had at Acme. It was packed since 11:20 that morning. I pull in at 10-1 for the 2:00 show. They were serpentined outside. Now the weather was not good. It was light rain at this point, and there were a lot of Aggie fans there. I said it on the show. Herb gave me a strange look. Herb Tyler, who I do the show with, and I said it's the most subdued I've ever seen LSU fans since we've been doing this. And he laughed when I made the comment, I still live out on the bayou. So there's a lot of, I'm around a lot of cattle and the bald eagles and alligators. And as Bobby would say, Mike, you live in Wild Kingdom. But it almost reminded me a little bit of if weather would get bad, I can tell by the way the animals react. No birds,
right.
And everybody they know it long before we do. If that subdued atmosphere to me was almost like I got a bad feeling about tonight. I'm hoping LSU wins, but I got a bad, and so we leaving, and people are telling us this. So Herb and I, we walk out together, and I walked to my car, and he says, "Man, you're right. The reaction is almost like something bad's going to happen." So you go through the half and they got a shot here. And A&M sort of helped them. You got a block punt. You get the interception. And when I saw the punt return, I was like, oh, Here we go. And it cascaded off of there. And then you saw what happened afterwards, the optics and everything else. And I know how, serious we take football in Louisiana. I thought at the end of the third quarter, it's over for him. It's just over. And I didn't think that going in, but I thought that at the end of the third quarter.
And the weird thing is you look at a guy in Elko who goes to Texas A&M after Jimbo Fisher gets bought out, and Texas A&M is basically in the situation that LSU's in right now, and he turns the thing over and then goes in at halftime. Texas A&M had everything go against them in the first half of that game. They could have, I don't want to say folded their tents, but they could have come out and say, been pissy about it and say, whatever. No, they came out with a completely different attitude and said, we don't care what happened in the first half. They make a ton of adjustments, both emotionally and on the field. Meanwhile, LSU makes no adjustments and goes into the tank. And to me, that was where everything started to switch. And we saw, and then, of course, after the game, and Gabe and I were talking about it before we even went on here, and the Texas A&M crowd taking over the student section. But those last 30 minutes of that football game, at least 30 minutes of football time, you can't get over that. That's something in my mind, I'll never forget those final 30 minutes.
The other thing, too, Jim, is that everybody's giving 5,000 excuses on why LSU lost A&M. You know what I give credit? Look, the great coaching job Mike Elko did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're going to bitch about Brian Kelly doesn't make adjustments. His coaches don't make adjustments. They don't play physical. They don't play with emotion. What did you just watch? What did you just watch with Mike
A train
at A&M? He did exactly what you're complaining about Kelly about. He did. And he's getting virtually nothing said about him. And so I said it. Mike Elko is one hell of a coach and what he's been able to do. And I think Saturday night was a great example of him sort of knowing his team. He pressed the right buttons. He got him to come back in the second half when a lot of things didn't go right for him, and they made it work. And if they wanted to score 60 points in that game, they could have. They took on a foot off the accelerator in the second half of that game, especially in the fourth quarter. So I got to give Mike a lot of credit for what he does. But, you know, again, we take it very seriously here in Louisiana, and it's easy now, you know, 48 hours afterwards or whatever, to say, oh, well, I knew that was going to happen. You really didn't.
Nobody knew that. Nobody could have possibly known look, if they play a tight game, and if they lose, I don't know, 27-25 instead of 49-25, and they play a tight game and they lose on a heartbreak defeat. We're not here today talking about this. Now, we may be talking about Joe Sloan being gone or whatever. But we would not have been here. They're not going to buy out Brian Kelly if they have this heartbreak loss and you're moving on. It may happen at the end of the season. We would have to see, but it wouldn't have happened. And the reason why it happened is, again, what you talked about, optics. And you can't be blown out on your home field by, I don't care if it's the number one team in the nation. You can't look like you looked on Saturday night and continue to go on, because this team was going nowhere fast.
Yeah, and so why are you putting off the eventuality? Okay? You can say, okay, well, we'll change at the end of the year. My thing about it is you change your offensive coordinator, maybe your offensive line coach, maybe a special team coach. Well, okay, but the problems to me are still the same. This team has sort of tuned out Brian Kelly, to be honest with you. And here's the other part of the optics that look bad for LSU. Brian Kelly MFing everybody from coaches to players.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, you're the head coach. If you didn't like the play call by Joe Sloan, don't you have authoritarianism?
Absolutely.
I'm going to change it. Come on.
Yeah, okay, you mean he didn't hear this in his headset before they actually started the play? And if you didn't hear it on your headset, well, then that's also a problem. So either way, if you don't want him to run that play, then don't run that play. You tell him you can't run that before the play, not after.
Okay, doesn't he see the clock running down and they don't have the play called in, and he's jumping Garrett Nussmeier about it? Okay, the one thing we have seen with Brian Kelly, he throw everybody under the bus as quickly as he can.
He sure did.
And he don't mind rolling over them. But, Jim, I'll be honest with you. He got hired on a Monday night. That's when the news broke. And so we doing second guess, Bobby and I. We had on a Notre Dame guest. We had him on all week long. We probably had 6 on. At least 5 told me the same story. Not exactly the same words, but it came out the same. Brian Kelly is going to finger point everybody but himself. And the stuff about he can't win a national championship here at Notre Dame, you know, that's just an excuse for him to take that payday to go to LSU. And they brought it up first, not anybody here. People that had covered him at Notre Dame brought it up. They brought up the term personality fit.
Yep.
Personality fit. And it always sticks in my mind because one of the guys who also does some draft stuff says, Mike, you say it all the time about players in the draft. There are 4 or 5 players in every draft class. No matter where they end up, their production's the same. Everybody else is a little bit of a fit. Where they fit, who they getting coached by, what team they're on, teammates around them, that sort of thing. There's just a handful of guys every year. And I think about Brian Kelly with that. He was not the personality fit here. And again, you can't coach from the ninth hole at the Baton Rouge Golf Course. You can't coach from the Ivory Towers, that sort of thing. And he is, I've been around a lot of CEOs like him, where I think he understands the game very well. But if he's got good coordinators, then it all works for him. But if he doesn't and one's out of joint, then you don't see the same guy. I think about Kevin House, who really was awful as a defensive coordinator here at LSU, but it took him forever to finally unplug him. Joe Sloan, aren't we seeing the same sort of thing happen with Joe? Almost a similar manner. The special teams was a major cluster. You know what? From the day he took the job, and yet we still see a lot of special teams mess ups. And a lot of people don't like to hear it, but this is the truth. Les Miles and Orgeron recruited Louisiana a lot better.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Okay, you can say, well, what happened toward the end with Coach O. That's true. Same thing that happened toward the end with Les Miles. But they recruited Louisiana.
Absolutely, they did.
Much better than Brian Kelly. And here's the most telling thing. We are a little less than 24 hours from Brian Kelly kind of, I guess, officially getting released. Has there been one player on the team that has come out and said, man, listen, Coach Kelly was a hell of a leader, a great coach. Him and I, we got along great. I can't thank him enough. Have you heard one?
Mike, not just the players, no one, nobody. Nobody's coming out and saying, I mean, even you and I who didn't think it was going to happen, we weren't necessarily defending Brian Kelly, but no one is saying this morning, I feel bad for Brian Kelly. He just, usually when someone gets fired, you're thinking, someone's going to, not a single person has taken up for Brian Kelly. I'm wondering if Brian Kelly's wife would take up for Brian Kelly right now. I don't think there's anyone who thinks that this is a bad move. You've got to, again, I hate the fact that LSU is going to spend this money, and we'll talk about it. Nola Man 86 talks about how you're going to pay $56 million in a buyout and still go find be able to spend money on a head coach. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they had to make this move, and I don't think anyone's upset about it. No one wearing purple and gold anyway.
No one. And I've talked to a lot of different people, a lot of different categories at LSU. People who have given a lot of money, people who have given a little bit of money, people who don't give any money, but they're just huge fans. None of them is upset with this, but that blowout against A&M was no doubt the tipping point to get Brian Kelly out. And now the thing is, what do we do next? And who is the guy?
That's the hold on real quick, because I actually have a comment that fits this perfectly. And that's where I was going next. And Mitch Bergeron says, good morning. The real question is, who should be responsible for the next hire at LSU? Scott Woodward was responsible for Fisher and Kelly. Kelly was a better hire, but I don't completely trust him. You also forget, and I am going to take up for Scott Woodward just a second, because he did hire Kim Mulkey and Jay Johnson, and that seemed to work out just fine. But is Scott Woodward also on his way out?
Let's just say I don't think Scott has nearly the power he did back when he hired Brian Kelly. We all, I grew up here, you grew up here, anybody's growing up here in Louisiana. The governor of the state of Louisiana has a lot of power here, okay? I can remember my grandfather telling me stories about Huey Long and about Huey ran LSU, basically, and made the comment, if I wasn't the governor, I'd be the head coach of the LSU Tiger football team. That's how much he thought of it. Okay, I was a kid, grew up. John McKithen. Did anybody kind of bleed purple and gold more than John McKithen did?
No.
He did everything for LSU. Then I think back a few years ago, that was a lot of rumors, and they were true. I got them confirmed by people who were there. Joe Oliva was going to fire Les Miles after
It was done.
The players put Les on their shoulders, carried him off the field, but Les and Joe Oliva met. Because why? Joe Oliva had gotten a phone call from then Governor Bobby Jindal to tell him, you're not making this move right now. Les Miles is going to coach LSU next year. Now, Joe sort of made him walk the plank a little bit because the following year, they lose to Auburn in an unbelievable finish to a game that looked as though LSU had scored, but then they didn't get the playoff.
Right.
And then Coach O comes in as the head coach. I'm also convinced that when Tom Herman, who then was at Houston, he was the hot guy. He was basically what Lane Kiffin is today. Tom Herman was a few years back. He leveraged LSU to get the job he really wanted, Texas. So he leveraged that, got the job at Texas. So now Oliva's in a spot. I'm sure that he got a phone call from the governor to say, hey, Ed Orgeron's done a pretty good job here. Let's go with the Louisiana guy. And that happened. Jeff Landry is now involved with this as the governor. There is no president at LSU. I think there will be fairly soon. I think in the next couple of weeks. He don't talk like I do, but he is the Bayou boy that I think he lived further down on the Bayou than I did. He grew up in Galliana. Wade Roos, who's now the president of McNeese, I think Wade is the prohibitive favorite to get the job, to be the next president at LSU. And I think the governor really wants him to be the next president of LSU. So you don't think Jeff Landry is going to have some say here?
Oh, of course he is.
And
of course he is.
Because you know why? People are in his ear about, Gov, how can the state across from us have the hottest coach in college football? And we didn't want to talk to him when they hired, Brian Kelly. The athletic director didn't think Lane Kiffin was a good fit here. Why is everybody after him? But we not.
Why is everybody after him? Period. Let's get, you know what? I'm going to move on and put my next slide up here because Koki Riley had his top 15 candidates, and I actually listed them in the same order that this is not my order. This is Koki Riley's top 15 candidates. I love Koki to death, and he's been on my. He's been a contributor to this show many, many times. So he had Lane Kiffin number one. I don't. I'm going to ask. You know what I think about Lane Kiffin, Mike Detillier. I'm going to ask you anyway. I mean, I don't understand why everyone is in love, and I guess not everyone, but why are so many people in love with a Lane Kiffin coach who has never done anything important in his career ever except when he was a coordinator? As a head coach, he's been good. Okay. He was terrible in the NFL, but at USC, now Ole Miss, whatever, he's been good. Not great. Why do they want another guy that's been good, not great? I don't get it. If you're going to go for someone who hasn't won anything, go for someone who's young, like a John Summerall or a Dan Lanning. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it's really kind of pissing me off, obviously.
Because you know what? I think Louisiana people can relate to Lane. He's a personality fit.
Someone who could talk shit? That's what he does.
No, because you know why? Personality. He's quirky. He talks.
Oh, he's quirky.
He's offensive oriented, and his teams have really been good on offense. Now, where they've been bad is on defense. They haven't been very good, though I do give him full credit. And we talked about this Saturday. I was shocked that he rolls into Norman, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's got a really good offense. Now, I don't know how healthy, Mateer is. But they went in there and they won that game.
They did.
Defense. They were really good. Man,
yes,
I give him credit. But him being this kind of bigger than life personality, the offensive play caller. I know Coach O told me this. He said, while Sarkisian, from a game plan standpoint, is the best I've ever been around as an offensive coach. He's like, Mike, that was none better than Steve. But he said, putting people in the right spot, finding a weakness on offense, on the other team's defense, ain't nobody in Lane's category. And he said, I worked with him at USC. I worked with him at Tennessee. I went back to USC with him. And he was like, man, he can see and visualize something in a defense that a lot of people can't see. He said, with Sark is different. He has a certain offense I like to run, and it gives people problems. But he said, Lane, he does it a little differently. I see what you don't do, and I'm going to take advantage of it and go after you. He said, Mike, both those guys are really good as play callers, as guys that can signal out what's bad on another team's defense. And so when they played him one year, Lane told him, man, your damn safety is tipping off everything y'all doing defensively. And he said, Mike, I went back and looked at the tape. He was right. He was absolutely right. And he said, our coaches didn't pick it up, but he did. That Lane picked it up. But I just think there is a certain aura about him and how he handles things that people in Louisiana say, you know what? Yeah, he'll lose a game here and there. But, man, I like Lane Kiffin. I like the way he
Mike, you already promised me that you said Lane Kiffin's not going to – I have nothing to worry about. Lane Kiffin's not getting the job at LSU. Sounds like maybe you're changing your mind a little bit, like maybe he's got a shot.
If Scott Woodward had full say, I would say no. Because I've been told by enough people, Scott don't really think that it's going to work with Lane. But maybe Scott does not have the final say. Okay, that's what none of us know.
That's a possibility.
You got information. You got no information. Okay, that stuff may be a call from somebody with a little bit more stroke than Scott Woodward does.
Yeah.
Now, the big question mark is for me, Jim.
How much money would it take, even if that is what they wanted?
Probably talking $11.5 to $12 million a year in that range.
But are they willing to spend that kind of money? So, I mean, that's probably what it would take to get Dan Lanning to leave Oregon, I guess.
Now, here's my thing.
So he's number one on my list, by the way.
To Eugene, Oregon. I would make that phone call to Dan
So would
Lanning. I don't know Dan at all. I know Dan Lanning through Pete Jenkins. Pete coached with him at Alabama. And then when Dan went to Georgia with Kirby, Pete was working like he normally does. He works the spring and the fall with the Georgia defensive linemen. And then when Dan gets the job at Oregon, he just texted me one night, hey, my boy got the job. And this was before anybody, had it out. And I said, what boy? And he writes, Lanning. And I was like, okay. But he said, hey, keep that between us. And sure enough, the next day, Lanning gets the job at Oregon. And Pete's worked with Dan. He goes 3-4 times a year to Oregon to work with their defensive linemen. He thinks that much of Dan Lanning. But Phil Knight knows how to cut a check. And he got money, dude. That's unbelievable. When you're talking about he's worth $55 billion.
Yeah, right.
Hey, what do y'all need? How much? A couple $100 million? I got it. When y'all want it? Tomorrow or today? LSU's not like that. I would make the phone call, though. I want him to tell no.
You would make the phone call to Lane?
Dan Lanning.
To Dan Lanning, yeah. And look, Ryan Ashe says, and look, Lanning is a good situation in Oregon. Not sure why he'd leave. I'll tell you why he'd leave. Because he's, unlike Kiffin, who's 50, Lanning is 39 years old. And to me, LSU is would be the next step on his career if he was successful at LSU. If he wanted to go the next step to the NFL, he'd have a ticket to go there. Or he could be a lifer and be, a long-time coach here in LSU and win national championships. So to me, at Oregon, I think you have trouble because of the competition. I just don't think that you're going to be able to win national championships on a regular basis at Oregon. I just think at LSU, you'd have a better chance to do that. It's a logical step for someone that age at 39 years old, in my opinion.
This is before my time, but he would remind me of a young Paul Dietzel.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pitchers coach, a guy that comes into LSU. I'm going to win. I'm going to win a national championship at LSU. I'm going to win it here. And he did. And he came close to winning a second national championship at LSU. And then I think his last team at LSU, he lost one game that year. But, I get it. It was different time, different world. The lure to go coach at Army. And you think about that now.
Yeah,
what?
back then, right.
You leave LSU to go to Army. But it was the lure of that time frame for Dietzel that he felt he could win there and kind of restore Army's greatness at that particular. But it was a different time, different world that we lived in. He's much more of a defensive-oriented coach. That's his background. But he hires great offensive people. Look the way they run their offense. Man, they spread you out 3 to 4 wide. They run 95% of that stuff out their shotgun. Their running backs are always these little bitty cats, like 5'8", 5'9", like Bucky Irving. It's all small, but man, are they good? And their linemen. Okay, if I got a 5'9" lineman and all a 5'9" running back, all my offensive linemen are 6'6", 6'5", and I hide them behind that guy. Okay, you got one shot at him visually, and then that's it. And his defenses always play tough. That's what shocked me, that Indiana could go to Eugene, Oregon, and beat them the way they did. That to me showed me just how good the Hoosiers were to go out there and beat them the way they did. But I would make the call and say, Dan, would you want this job? Would you want to come back?
I bet you he would be interested. I'm sorry. I can't imagine it.
That would be summit, because remember, he's got no ties to the West Coast.
No, but he's in a former SEC assistant.
He's from Missouri. So, and he spent a ton of time in the SEC. Would you want to come here? And
why wouldn't
again,
you?
I would say, tell me either yes or no, and we move on.
Right.
I don't have to call Dan. I can call his agent and say, hey, tell me, would Dan Lanning be interested in this job? And one thing Pete told me about him, Mike, he's a mean son of a bitch. If he got a chance to pour it on you, he said, Mike, he's mean. He said, man, he'll knock you to tomorrow if he gets a chance to, because he does know the way voters look at things today. And a lot of these Oregon games are late in the evening.
Yeah.
You see that stat sheet. Okay, they beat somebody 56-14.
Yep.
Now, them being in the Big Ten, they do have 12 and 1 o'clock games now, and that sort of thing. But if you're playing over there, okay, it's going to be a late night game. He said, the one thing with Dan, he going to lay it to you. And he said, Mike, I hate to tell him, man, if you down, he got no.
He's number one on my list, Mike. He's number one on my list. And I know, again, he'd have to want to come here. And I can't imagine someone his age not wanting to come here. And look, number 2 on my list, and I'm going to bring this up, and I just don't know that LSU would pull the trigger on a guy like John Summerall, who's young and unproven. When I say unproven, you go from Troy to Tulane. Is logically your next step LSU? Probably not, but that's a kind of a guy that I'm very interested in as well. Do you think that LSU would even? That's not a Scott Woodward type of hire, but is that a guy you think LSU would be interested in?
Okay, give me the big credentials of Matt McMahon.
Well, he came from a smaller school as well, and he did hire Matt McMahon, but they had gone to the Sweet 16 right before he came here, though. So I don't. But maybe this is LSU football you're talking about, and I think the thing that scares me.
I get where you're going with that. Man, how would it look?
He's my second choice, though.
Poach Tulane's coach to come coach at LSU. I will say this, and we've talked about this before.
People were poaching Bowden from Tulane in 1998.
Yeah, I think Tulane is a good to very good football team. They got one superstar.
Yeah.
His name is John Sumrall.
Yeah,
He's
I agree.
a superstar.
100%.
This is a short story, but I'll give it to you. Sam Jankovic, years ago, my neighbor, until he passed away a couple years ago, was Joe Clark. Joe coached in the NFL, Europe, major college football. He was the backup to Otto Graham in the 50s with the.
Okay.
So Joe was in his 80s when he passed away, late 80s. And so I've been asked probably 8 or 9 times to be on a search committee for head coaches by a school. Okay. And that was done not so much over the last 5 years. I've been asked for recommendations, but not being part of a committee. And so I was asked to be I'm in my 30s. I've never did that before in my life, but I said, okay, I'll do it. But I didn't know kind of where to go with it. I talked to Joe and he was like, I know Sam Jankovic. And for people who don't know Sam was the former athletic director at Miami of Florida. Comes in 1983. His coach there was Howard Schnellenberger.
Miami.
Because he
Louisville at the time
was a head coaching job in the USFL. But the franchise never really started up. He ended up at Louisville. So Sam hires against what the president wanted to do. He hires a guy from Oklahoma State by the name of Jimmy Johnson. That turned out pretty well.
That worked out all right.
So Jimmy, and I get it. Jimmy had a chance to coach in the NFL with his old buddy Jerry Jones. And so at that time, it was kumbaya between the two. Great. He gets the job. He's feeling a lot of pressure to elevate an assistant coach. And Sam decides to go and hire Dennis Erickson.
Yeah.
Look what it did to the program.
Yep.
So he went through that. Then he goes to the NFL. He was with the Patriots, but his health started to get bad. I'd never met him, never spoke to him. But Joe called him up and said, hey, listen, I want you to talk to my buddy, Mike Detillier. And so he gave me a time. Tell him to call me at this time. I thought it'd be a 10-minute conversation. It ended up being like 2.5 hours with Jankovic. And he went on and on and on about what you would look for. But he said, first of all, you got to find out who has the power. Who in the end really does have the power? Is it the athletic director? Is it the president? At that time, there were still governors that were getting heavily involved in coaching searches back then. And he was like, a lot of times a governor or a senator will come in and say, hey, listen, I want my guy. So he said, you got to find that out first. And he said, secondly, your list better not be 1, 2, or 3. You better have 4 or 5 names on that list. He said, a lot of times the guys you really want, they turn you down.
Yeah.
They say, you know what? I'm happy where I'm at, or I'm going somewhere else. Now they do it through their agent. The agent, he's really not interested. But he said, always have that list of your top tier, your middle, and one guy at the bottom, just in case that you can get.
Is that John Sumrall?
No, I would be maybe a step up from the 5.
Key, Clark Lee.
See, I don't know. The one thing I know, if it's Scott Woodward making the choice, he always hires people that have credentials, kind of a long credential deal. The only person recently he hired, and he was an assistant, but he was a top assistant for Dee Bro, is Jay Clark,
right,
in women's gymnastics. Now you say, well, that's not a big thing. Only thing I know is, man, bring your grandkids or your kids to a women's gymnastics meet at LSU and see if that place ain't packed.
It's packed
at the PMAC.
It is.
So he did elevate Jay when Dee retired. But all of the other people, if you looked at it throughout all his time frame, had all a pretty hefty resume. of where they coached, kind of winning, and the resume was fairly long on the deal. So, people are throwing out assistant coaches like Joe Brady. Come on, Joe Brady, he didn't like to recruit when he was at LSU.
Yeah.
So Joe Brady's not going to be that guy. It's going to be somebody with head coaching experience that has a resume that if it's up to Woodward, because, when you thought about when Paul Maneri left, did anybody right off the top of their head say, Jay Johnson's the guy?
No one. When they first started talking about it, I was like, who the hell is Jay Johnson?
It was the Florida coach. It was the former Oregon State coach.
It was.
Who had retired from Oregon State. But controversy, certainly with him. And I think some of the board of supervisors were, oh, no way. We're not taking that type heat. For him having at that time would seem to, he was a pedophile that was pitching for him. They were like, no, that's not working. And then he goes to Jay Johnson. Was Jay Johnson number one on the list? Scott Woodward would never tell you he's not, but I bet he wasn't. I bet he got turned down by a few guys.
I would think that absolutely that's true.
More than 20 years ago, I think still stands today. And God bless him. I mean, he didn't know me from the man in the moon. And for him to kind of share insights of what happened at Miami and some of his earlier times at Washington State. And I think it was at Montana State and that was the connection with Erickson. Okay. That was the deal there. And so he was like, culture fit, man, Dennis, he was a great culture fit no matter where he was. He never had been to Miami before. So, but look at success. Jimmy Johnson grew up in Texas, played at Arkansas, Oklahoma State. I remember when Jimmy was an assistant coach at Louisiana Tech.
Right.
And yet, look at how good the fit was at Miami. And, man, if Coach O was with me, he could tell you some honestly, great stories about it.
That's what would doom, and you talked about this many times, but to me, that's what doomed Brian Kelly more than anything. He was never a good fit here. He just didn't fit in personality-wise. He didn't fit in coaching scheme-wise. He wasn't the greatest recruiter. He was good at a lot of things, but I don't think he was great, and so, look, I was for him in the beginning. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and sit here now and tell you that I thought it was a bad hire when it happened, because I thought it was a good hire when it happened. But it just turned out that his personality just didn't work here. And I think that personality is that is a reason why some people probably like Lane Kiffin, because he does have the personality. Lane Kiffin definitely has the personality. So does Dan Lanning.
And those type offenses and how they score points and its excitement and everything else.
That's the new brand of football.
I will say this too. His defenses have looked a lot better with Pete Golding. And Pete, he's a Louisiana guy. People don't get it, but Pete Golding's from Louisiana.
Yeah.
He's from the state of Louisiana. And so they have had marginal success recruiting in Louisiana. No, Pete was a big time recruiter for Alabama here. No, a lot of people say, well, why isn't Alabama getting all the players from Louisiana like they used to? I tell them 2 words: Pete Golding. He was the connection. He knew every assistant coach, head coach in the high school ranks. He was connected to them so many different ways. And, however NIL worked back then, it worked for Pete too.
All right, I want you to tell me before, and I want to take like 3 minutes of your time before I let you go to just talk about the Shough Rattler situation. But before we do that, and I've already had you on longer than I was expecting to this morning. But give me your top 3 guys, not necessarily the top 3 guys that you want, but who do you think are going to be the 3 names that we're talking about when it comes down to these are the 3 finals? And it's early. It's October the 27th. The decision probably won't be made for 2 months. But in your opinion, who are the 3 guys that you think that we're going to be talking about when it comes down to it?
I think until you hear otherwise, Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin, John Sumrall.
the top 3 names on Cokie Riley's list. And I agree with you. I think if it's anyone other than those 3 guys, Mike, then you were right about you don't always get your first choice. But I can't say anyway that those, and that might not be the right order, but that's got to be the 3 guys you would think that would be the top of the list of the candidates, right?
Yeah, I think those 3 guys would be the 3 that would be on top of the list. And I think, the way it's done today, and it's totally different from even 10 years ago. A lot of people say, well, we ought to be on the phone with Lane. You ain't got to worry about that. Lane's agent's on the phone with you. Okay? Dan Lanning's agent will be on the phone with you.
Yep. Right.
John Sumrall's agent will be on the phone. You don't have to call anybody. You don't realize that, I think outside of Louisiana, a lot of people, okay, LSU, it's a big school here, but not necessarily nationwide. That's not the case. LSU has become a brand, a national brand.
For sure.
Across the board. Okay, you had 3 different guys win national championships here. Okay, that's remarkable that 3 different coaches win national championships. The other part, and I'll steal Nick's line, when he was coach here, Coach Saban made the comment about per capita, how many, players from the state of Louisiana go on to play in the NFL. Well, 8 out of the last 10 years, Louisiana has either finished first or second per capita, putting players in the National Football League. How many players are coming out of Oregon? Okay?
Not many.
Not a lot. Now, puts out a lot of players too, and I think it's underrated for them. Mississippi. Man, Mississippi got a lot of players
they do.
that go in the NFL. May not necessarily go to Ole Miss, but they might go to Memphis. They might go to Tennessee. They might go to Alabama or Auburn.
There's a lot of Mississippi players at Memphis right now.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're good.
My thing is, when you have that type setup, and I think the biggest lie in Louisiana is, the truth about it is, we don't have a Phil Knight. You don't have a Larry Ellison from Oracle, okay, who's involved with Michigan. Cody Campbell has certainly revitalized Texas Tech, a former Texas Tech football player who's a multi-billionaire. But I grew up on the bayou, so I learned it real quick in life. You got a lot of people with money here, and they swear to you they ain't got a nickel. You know why? They don't want to get hit up for money. Man, and Bobby always laughs. He was like, Mike, somebody hitting you up for money? I was like, Bob, the crazy thing is, I grew up in that sort of world here where you knew people had money. They weren't flashy with their homes or their cars, nothing. I used to always tease my mom about this before she passed away, and it would come down the shrimp season. And I would say, Mom, you want ice chest of shrimp? Oh, I don't know if I can afford it. I was like, you got more money than Trump. What are you planning for? I said, I got it, Mom. I got it. And so I'd go get her an ice chest of shrimp. I hope you didn't pay too much for it. I was like, Mom, I said, I made a good deal on it. And so it was white season, brown season. I get a nice chest of shrimp each time. And she was always worried about how much it cost. And she had money. I mean, unbelievable. But they all like that. A certain age, they ain't got a nickel. Though I don't have no money. They got people in Louisiana still like that today, of a certain age group. That
Kite says we still got Todd. We got Todd Graves.
Well, the thing with Todd is, I'm sure Todd get hit up by a lot of people.
I'm sure he does.
Man, for everything, Todd graduated from Georgia. He does have his stakes here, certainly in Louisiana. But just like if it's Gail Benson or the gentleman who owns Sazerac, who's a Tulane guy, Gary Swess, who lives right down the road from where I live. Gary's a multi-billionaire, but people in Louisiana that do have money, they're not going to tell you. And I don't want you putting that in the paper, okay? I don't want you putting.
How many times I heard that in my life? Mike Detillier, you know how many times I heard somebody tell me, I don't want you to put that in the paper in my life? If I had $1, every time somebody said, don't put that in the paper, I'd be rich. I wouldn't be doing this.
You'd be a millionaire. And so
I'd be buying my mama ice chest of shrimp.
Oh, my mom. Oh, God. It's like a vivid memory for me with that. And it was always about, I don't know if I can afford it. You can afford it. You can afford whatever the hell you want. But it's how they grew up in this world.
Yep.
And, and that stayed with them for all their life. The biggest misconception is that they don't have a lot of people with money in the state of Louisiana. That's a bunch of horse hockey. They got people with money here. Now, they don't want to tell you they got money. And I get it. Because if I tell you and it's in the paper or on TV, guess what? I got everybody asking me for money.
Mike, I live in Mandeville. You go drive around Mandeville up here. They got lots of neighborhoods where people have money. If you ever go drive around and back in a neighborhood close to where Coach O used to live up here in Mandeville, not too far down the road from there, you drive around in those neighborhoods. The Sanctuary where Sean Payton used to live, you go drive around. Tyrann Mathieu lives in Beauchene. You go drive around back there. There's plenty of people with plenty of money, especially up here on the North Shore.
This is an A-Bear line. But he tells me all the time, Mike, you live in the Garden District of Lafourche. I'm still trying to figure out.
Is there such a thing?
That is an A-Bear line. And listen, nobody else could get away with that. And then he goes on for another 30 minutes telling you exactly why. But there is money being funneled. And we're living in a different world where a lot of people, they are not like older people that, when I die, you handle my money.
Right.
Okay. When I die, you handle all that. Now, a lot of people in their, say, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into their 80s, their deal is, you know what? I got it, and I'm willing to give it to you. I want to see where it's going, though. Explain where my money's going. I want to see it. And that's why today people say, well, how these young kids are millionaires like overnight? Well, look at the grandma and grandpa.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I can figure that one out real quick.
Exactly.
That, okay, you just finished college and you building a multi-million-dollar home and all this. Come on, grandma and grandpa, they take care of them.
Yep.
And that's why this misconception, quote unquote, Louisiana don't have money. Okay, not everybody's rich in this world. Not everybody's wealthy in this world. But we had a guy from New Orleans just sold his tech company to somebody in Sweden and for $4.8 billion.
Is that a lot of money? Is that a lot of money? Is that a lot of money? 4.8 billion?
Yeah. We could live pretty good off the 4.8 billion. But, here's my thing with him is the fact that other than for the sale, have you seen him on TV, newspaper? And man, smart. Hey,
they don't want to be on TV.
No, here's my deal. I don't know who told him this, and he's in his 40s. But here's my deal with him. I'm sure somebody told him, hey, dude, listen, whatever you do, don't tell people who you are. You can go out and do whatever you want, but don't tell them. I just sold my tech company, Lucid, for $4.3 or $4.8 billion. Because you know what? Hey, man, I need some money. I got a great idea for you.
Everybody's got a great idea, Mike. Everybody's got a great idea. All right, last LSU question again. I want you to give me 3 minutes on Saints before you leave. But is there any chance? And I know the answer to this, but is there any chance that somebody calls Miss Terry and talks her into getting Nick Saban to say, you know what? I don't care if he's 74 years old on Halloween. He's going to come out of retirement and coach LSU for about 4 or 5 more years and then say night-night.
I'd be shocked.
So would I.
Yeah, I've had people. I don't really know Nick. When he was here, we did some junkets together, but I can't say I knew him. We just did the same junket,
right,
so to speak. And it was a hello, how you doing, and that was about it. And I listened to him talk, and he would say the same speech no matter where he went, to the point where I could say the speech, but it sounded like him. But
you can't talk like Nick Saban. Nick Saban definitely can't talk like you, Mike Detillier. He can't do that accent. There ain't no way.
But no, the accent, but he can coach. Man, he's the greatest college coach of all time. So, man,
hard to argue it.
But here's the deal. I think he knows it's it. And I've been told by people who really know him, he's not coming back. And it's a great story. And even Coach Jenkins, who's really close with him and still close to him today, will tell me, he's like, Pete, where the hell are these stories coming from?
Yeah.
Where are they coming from? It's almost like Archie, the day after the 2025 draft, I called him up. I said, Arch, could do a segment with me? Mostly talking about Tyler Shough. And he was like, yeah, sure. He said, Tyler went to Manning camp like 3 times and for 2 different schools. And so he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I finally told him, I said, well, everybody's saying next year at this time, man, Mike, I'm telling you, Arch is playing.
You said that here on his show 6 months ago.
Said it not once. He said it twice. Then he said it again and again and again. And yet he asked me, who the hell is putting this out? Where are they getting this insider information?
You want me to tell you the answer to that as somebody that's been in the newspaper business for 35 years, Mike?
Click.
Exactly. And look, we still work this way at the newspaper. We don't do that. Nobody I know in my business does that, because you have to go through your editors and you're accountable for things that you write in your stories or whatever it is. I would never say that here on an air. That I could say that I heard it, that it was on social media or whatever, or I could say, and I probably wouldn't even do that. I would say someone I trust has said such and such. But in my day, Mike, and I grew up in a business of, you had to have a minimum of 2 sources, and they better be 2 really damn good sources, or you needed 3 sources to tell you something before your editor would ever let you put something in print. And nowadays, look, I'm not going to mention any names, but I saw someone yesterday typing on social media, just typing away saying, my sources tell me. And it's somebody, you don't have sources for jack, dude. What are you trying to prove a point? You're just trying to get someone to follow you and get you clicks, and you're just saying whatever the hell. And then you got other people who are stupid saying, well, I heard on social media that Lane Kiffin's the next coach. You ain't heard jack. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, Well,
the best part. So we have Archie on the Monday. So the Tuesday we doing the show. And the first caller I get on Sports Talk is, Mike, I got good information from people in the know that Archie is lying to you, and that Archie is going to come out for the 2026 draft. The Saints have the first overall pick. I'm saying, okay, I got his grandpa on yesterday. Who's a better source than the grandpa?
Nobody.
Okay? And he was like, Mike, this is somebody different from, well, yeah, somebody different from the grandpa. I can put that one out. But, man, listen, in today's world, and I saw it yesterday, somebody write, I think this was late in the afternoon, well, this deal been done long ago. I got great sources. Well, how come you didn't write it 4 hours ago when you did? Now you it after the fact.
Exactly.
Oh, I got great sources. Come on, Jack. You got 0 sources.
0 sources, exactly. And look, it used to be like no one would ever. You want to be first, yeah, but you would rather be right. And now people, I'm not joking, people would rather be first than right, because if you're first and you're right like 25% of the time, then people say, oh, Joe Blow had that first way back when, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter who it is. And it doesn't matter if they're right. They're like the weatherman now. I mean, you don't have to be right. You just want to be first. And it just, I don't know. It really kind of chaps my heart.
You grew up in a different time.
I did. I'm a newspaper man, and I always will be a newspaper man, and that's who I am. And even though I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm a newspaper man. That's how I was born and raised in this business. I started when I was 22 years old, and that's all I know. And I'd rather be right than first any day in Christmas.
32. You still look good for 32.
Oh, 32. I don't even remember 32. Yeah. 32. Yeah. 35 years in this business, Mike Detillier. 35 years. Hard to believe. All right. Before I let you go, the big question today, and for those who can't see, I'm going to get back to LSU. For those who want to hear more about LSU, we got Scott Rabalais coming up in just a moment. But the question is of the day, obviously, after the same time as Ryan Kelly stuff's coming out, You watched the game yesterday. The switch to Tyler Shough, we knew it was coming at some point, and Kellen Moore had no choice, in my opinion, but to make that move when he made it. The question now is the move to Tyler Shough permanent, or at least for the next several games?
Yeah, I think best term to use is semi-permanent.
Semi-permanent. There you go.
Age, because I mean, you never really know. And to his, I watched Shough play, and he had a shot to hit a big play and didn't connect, and so it. But this offense is so bad.
It's bad.
Jim, they don't do one thing good.
It was bad when they were healthy.
One thing they do good. One.
The run to the bench when it's 4th down and the punting unit comes out. They do that really well.
This team offensively is sort of going to look the same. I think Shough gives you the a deep play ball that maybe that Spencer, that wasn't his forte, that sort of deep ball. No. I think Shough can do that better than he can. And you're going to go through the growing pains with any young quarterback. I don't care who he is. The Jaden Daniels thing is an anomaly. And I try to tell, Jaden Daniels did it. Okay. How many Jaden
Look at Caleb Williams. He's the first pick of the draft. Pick of the draft, Caleb Williams. He looks like he's lost.
And I remember Drake May, and this is my comparison, and I don't want to compare talents to talents. But last year, New England started Jacoby Brissett, I think for 7 games. Then they handed the baton to Drake May. He looked terrible. I mean, he missed on shots and easy throws. He was missing. But the last 3 or 4 games, you started to see something in Drake. You say, man, we got something. We got something here with him. And it made the job, even though it was not heavily kind of populated with talent, it made it really open, so to speak, that if I'm a potential head coach, I want that job because of Drake May.
Right.
I want it because of Drake. Look what he's done this year. He's been fabulous this year as a football team. But when your offensive line is bad, you can't run the ball. You got drop passes. But here's my thing. Can you line up correctly and not have a pre-snap penalty? That's the easiest thing to do.
No question.
Get done.
No, I think there's no question that's true. And look, later on in the show, after Scott Rabalais comes on, I got 2 clips, one from Spencer Rattler and one from Coach Kellen Moore. And I know that they're spewing the whole, we got to take 48 hours to evaluate, but I think you can hear from both of them.
Yeah.
I think that everyone on that team knows that they're transitioning to Tyler Shough now.
Yeah, I think you can sense it now. And I think, too, once you give the baton to him, you got to give him his shot. You can't put him after. Right. But, over the last 2 games, and I thought early in the season, Spencer wasn't the reason you were losing. You had a lot of other reasons, but it wasn't Rattler. True. And Rattler played a lot better than I thought he would, to be perfectly honest.
I agree 100%.
Really, now, 2 weeks, if he is feeling a little bit of pressure from the guy behind him to try to do way too much, you got to be more protective of the football, especially in heavy traffic. In this world today, man, they're trying to rip it out of you. So but Jim, I just look at it yesterday defensively. You really couldn't have asked your defense to play any better than what they did. And yet I didn't think Baker Mayfield played very well at all. I thought he was rather average for Baker Mayfield, and they were on him, man. They put a lot of heat on
that
Baker.
goal line stand was one of the best I've seen, not just by the Saints, one of the best I've seen in years. That was fantastic. They almost did it again.
A second time. And I understand he's playing with injuries and that sort of thing along the offensive line, that receiver and that running back. But, man, defensively, you couldn't have asked him to do anything.
Agree.
But you almost see the spiral a little bit in Spencer. Now, again, you're not in his moccasins, but you almost sense that he feels this team is fixing to move on from him.
Yeah.
You can almost sense it. He feels it at this stage. They're fixing to move on from him.
Yeah. And Apathy writes, it's hard to be prepared when Ruiz and Penning are your guards. Those two are hot garbage. I mean, our guards, the guard play for the New Orleans Saints has just been, it's getting worse every year. And I don't know, you've got to move on from those two some kind of way. And I would actually start with Ruiz. I never thought I would say this because I've been against Penning for years now, for 3 years after his rookie season. I'm going to say that I would go with Ruiz first. You have got to find the right guard.
I think you got to do what the Panthers did, and that is redo your guard unit. And they got pummeled yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but they won 3 games in a row running the ball. They Rico Dowdle, okay?
I know.
A few people know him because he played for the Cowboys, okay? He was a running back.
Gabe knows him. Gabe's been talking about him for a while now.
And so I was texting with Jen Hale afterwards, and he told me that the coach said, you know what? We just handed the football to Rico. And because we got holes. And she said, Mike, as soon as I said it on the air, Rico takes off. And I think it's like a 43-yard run.
Right.
The timing of it was, like she said, you couldn't have planned that. But when they came to me, I said, well, this is what, the coach said. And he said, we're going to continue to run the football with Rico. They haven't tackled him yet. And she said, poof, he takes off 43 yards downfield.
Yeah. My last thing, this will be the last thing before I let you go. And Douglas Thornton has a point that I want to make that some fans think the Rattler, this is what the Rattler fans think. And I'm not chastising you when I show this, Douglas, but this is what the Rattler fans think. And this is why I think this is completely wrong take. I don't care who you put in quarterback. This team is so undisciplined. That part's true. They have more drops, false starts, holding penalties. They keep stopping drives. So changing the quarterback won't matter. Here's why the last sentence you have, changing the quarterbacks won't matter. This is why it does matter. And I've said this multiple times. I'm going to say it again while you're on here, Mike, because I'm pretty sure you agree with me. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure you agree with me here. Here's why it matters. We know for a certainty he's 1-13. Spencer Rattler, I think he's shown enough to show that he can be a backup. I'm okay with him being a backup, but I think we all know he is not the long-term answer of quarterback in this team. This team is now 1-7. They've got 9 football games left before the 2026 draft. I'm not saying Tyler Shough is your future at quarterback, but there's only one way to find out. So it does matter. You have to play Tyler Shough because you have to know if he can be your potential answer at quarterback, whether I think he is or isn't, whether you think he is or isn't, even whether Kellen Moore doesn't even know the answer. There's only one way to find out, and that's to let him play the next 9 games.
I agree. I think you got to let him play and see what you have. If not, guess what? You got to go back and try to get you a quarterback in the draft.
Absolutely.
There is no other solution to it, but you got to find out. Okay, if you continue to play Spencer and Tyler has a redshirt year, it does give us a lot to talk about in the offseason about, boy, I sure would have liked to have seen Tyler Shough to see what he could have done. But now it opens up that avenue to see if he is actually your guy and how much room will you give. Now, looking at the college ranks, this isn't the quarterback year I think any of us thought it would turn out to be. It's
right. It's not been nearly as good. Yep.
Good. But I want to find out about Tyler, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever is shown. And I do agree with offensive line play has something to do with it. Receivers got to catch the football. But you know what this team doesn't play with today? Confidence in anything they do. And people's like, I'm like, momentum. You know how long momentum lasts? But long enough for you to get hit in the mouth the next play. That's about how long momentum lasts. But if you got confidence that you can do it, man, it all kind of works out. And we saw last night, man, the big build-up with Aaron Rodgers playing his old team again. And I refer to the Packers.
Don't get me started on Jordan Love. The Saints could have had Jordan Love Don't get that's frustrating.
The Packers are like a kid that likes to play with their food. They don't like to put it in their mouth right away. They play with it on the plate and play with it on the plate. Maybe give a bite to the dog if you got one or whatever. Last night, in the first half, the Packers were the ultimate play with their food team. In the second half, man, they had that spoon and it was to the mouth. Man, they hit Pittsburgh every which way but loose. And you saw the skill set of Jordan Love last night. He wasn't the play with the food guy.
Oh, no. He had something to prove last night. And he did.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you just how good I am.
So did Tyler Kraft, by the way.
Aaron Rodgers, okay, I think at times can still kind of grab some of the glory he once had.
Right.
Also seeing his age. And the thing with a lot of people who just see maybe the last 5 or 6 years of Aaron don't realize was how mobile Aaron Rodgers was in the pocket, how he could make plays off center, and kind of running and then throwing the ball at the last second, side on, 3/4, almost underhanded, and get a ball there or run with the ball. But Father Time is undefeated and
baby.
Beaten for a reason. He catches and beats everyone.
Yeah.
If
he's gonna beat us too one day.
Get caught.
Yeah. We're gonna lose too one day, Mike. I just want to keep winning long enough to. They don't even have to win a Super Bowl, Mike. I just want to live long enough to see them good again and relevant again. I mean, because that might take 10 or 15 or 20 years. Who knows? I hope it don't take that long, but Well,
I hope it don't. I don't know about 15
How long
years.
can we keep talking about this? It seems like we were so spoiled, Mike. Sean Payton and Drew, we were so spoiled. And it's I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we get all these texts, and it's the same people that were bitching about, man, we need a quarterback other than Drew Brees. I want a running quarterback. Okay. And now they were, man, I sure wish we had Drew Brees back. Mm-hmm. Man, we're never going to see another guy like Drew Brees again. My thing is, well, weren't you the same cat that told me that Drew Brees had to go? Yeah, but he was getting old. Okay, we all get old.
Hey, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I said it too. So I'm like wanting to punch my own self in the face because Lord, I don't know, 46-year-old Drew Brees or whatever he is, he could come back for he's got one more season left. And come on back one.
Yeah, when we have him on, we do the segment every Wednesday. It's like, hey, Drew, why don't you come back? Come back and play. He was like, I can't throw right-handed no more. He said, Mike, I got to throw everything left.
That's okay.
I'm like, okay. My deal is this. You don't have a lot of wear and tear on that left arm.
That's right. That's right.
Right. The left arm is good.
All right. Well, Mike Detillier, you went on the Armed Forces Radio Network, and then you came, you did a lot of other things, came and stopped with us at Dattitude. It is always a pleasure, my friend. You lend so much credibility to the show. I appreciate it so much, and I can't wait till we talk to you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good. Don't spend too much. I know you're going to be on the radio later. They can find, but I guess you're going to be talking this evening, right? On WWL?
We 4 to 7:30. We have a second guest out in Mississippi at the Silver Slipper Casino. So me and Bobby J doing that, and we got the coaches show on it, which is really an adventure at 6:30. They give Bobby leeway to ask Kellen Moore a question, and man, it used to be him and Sean would spar, and it was like watching two boxers.
I know.
They would go left and right. And then one day after practice, man, I'm walking off the field and Sean's going to meet the press to talk to him. And he walks up to him and he was like, I don't know what they pay you for those Monday night shows. But he said, I know damn well it ain't enough. But he said, I will give you this. He said, before I start answering questions, Hebert's the only guy that I know that can ask a question, answer a question, and debate himself before I get a chance to answer. It's the greatest comment I've ever heard about it. And Sean was 2,000% right.
Last night, Bobby, and I can't remember who the guest was, but it was somebody who covers LSU, came on, and Bobby went on a long diatribe, and he actually said at the end, before he let the guy answer, he actually said, "Well, I know I already answered my own question, and I apologize for that." It's the first time I ever heard him say that. It was awesome. You have to tell him about that tonight. So they go.
And when I grab his arm, he knows that means to cut. I'm one of the few, I guess, he listens to.
Right. You're the only one that can get away with that.
But man, and him and I, we kind of spar with one another about this thing. And our old boss at WWL, he would always say, he'd hear us walking down the hall, and he was like, "Y'all talk nothing about sports. I've heard y'all talk for the last 20 minutes. Y'all have not said one word about sports, nothing." He said, "I ain't even talk about talking about." But he said, "Y'all don't talk about it, and y'all script nothing." I was like, "Script what?
No.
We got
no, God, no."
I was like, "Dude, when we start,
I can't even imagine y'all even scripted for 5 minutes. That wouldn't work."
No, and it's never now. Now, some people are different now. You do shows with. They want it scripted. This is what I'm going to ask you. Take 2 minutes to answer. And then I'm going to ask you this and ask me that. And then I'll get a guest on what are you going to ask me? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to kind of give you a broad look at what I'm going to ask you. And I don't mind doing that because some people are maybe a little bit more adept at one thing than the other. And if you throw them a basketball question, they mainly focus on football, they're not going to know as much, and they don't want to come off that way. But man, that's the one thing with Bobby. He can jump from baseball to college basketball to the Olympics.
He did. He started talking about
the Olympics in 19.
Last night, he started talking about, and I'm quoting here, he quoted that Japanese pitcher when he started talking about the Dodgers and out of nowhere. He went from talking about Tyler Shough to that Japanese pitcher in like 15 seconds. I don't know that anybody's ever done that. Look, go pass a good time with the Silver Slipper.
Yeah, we have a good time. John Ferrucci was good with this too. John ran the Slipper from 07 until he just retired last year. And he was like, "Hey, what y'all do on the air is great." He said, "Man, y'all two are unbelievable." But he said, "It's crap compared to what y'all do off the air." And because, we right there by the bar. And so we talking to everybody. He was like, "That is the funniest 2.5 hours when y'all go to break that you could possibly listen to." He's like, "It is unbelievable to hear the talk." And he was like, "Okay, y'all come from almost like a different land. Okay, y'all grew up on the bayou, both of y'all. And everybody thinks I live in the city and he lives back on the bayou, and yet it's opposite. I live on the bayou and he lives in the city." And so it's a real adventure. We have a great time there, and if you want to be entertained, you got a lot of entertainment going on.
I will absolutely be listening to your show tonight. It's going to be fun. So 4 to 7:30 before the Monday Night Football game. Mike Detillier, Bobby Hebert, and the crew on WWL Radio. Mike, again, thanks so much. I know your day started at 4:30 this morning. Thank you for spending an hour now with me here on Dattitude. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, I'll send you the bill in the mail.
Please do. I'll send it to my bosses. We'll see what happens. Right. See you later, Mike. Mike Detillier, everybody. Look, I love it, man. I love it. I love it when he's on. And last night when I was thinking about who can I get to come on and talk about LSU, because it can't just be I'm sorry. I know there's so many. There's literally 100. We might be up to 1,000. I have no idea. Some of it's trolling. We got a troll back there, and I'm going to let him just keep on trolling. I'm not showing his comments because we don't do the whole troll. A good friend of mine said to start ignoring the trolls. I'm not good at ignoring. I'm going to be nice. I'm not good at ignoring stupidity. I just never have been, but I'm trying. I'm trying to get better at it. So a good friend of mine told me to start ignoring the trolls. I'm trying. We'll see how it goes. And Douglas, by the way, Thornton, thank you for the comments. All my regulars back there. Thank you so much. I know we got a lot of new people today, so I will say this real quick. If you have not subscribed to the Dattitude YouTube page, please do so. Give us a like. We're going to move back to LSU in just 1 second. But I do want to say, coming up after Scott Rabalais' segment, we got Gabe Henderson coming up in a little while. We got a Monday Night Football prediction. This may end up being the longest show ever. I think the record's 2:20-ish, 2 hours and 20 minutes. We may pass that today. It wasn't my intention to, but it is what it is. And we got a lot of things to talk about, and a lot of y'all are still here, so and you still want to hear about it. Again, the move to Tyler Shough, we're kind of all over the place a little bit. After Scott Rabalais, I got a clip to play for you from Spencer Rattler and from Coach Kellen Moore, and to let you hear basically why I think that tells you a story on why I think the decision has been made already. Look, again, like Mike said, you don't make that move, I think, unless you're ready to make the move. And that's where I am right now with this. So I would be surprised if they go back, at least this week. This is one of the, in fact, it may be, besides at Buffalo, if you looked at the entire schedule and said, where's the toughest place for Tyler Shough to get his first start? It's Buffalo, number 1, at Buffalo, number 1, and at LA Rams, number 2. However, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm not going to backtrack on what I said. Forget about the golden parachute. There is no parachute now. You got to make the move. It is what it is. You've got to that point in your season where it doesn't benefit you at all to wait for it. Sean, the Cajun Cannon, he has not been on the Dattitude podcast. I would love to have the Cajun Cannon on. Mike has given me his number. I was going to reach out, I think, right before the season started, and something happened, and he was gone, and I didn't reach out. And so it hasn't happened yet, but I hope it will. I actually want to ask Bobby in person to come on the show. So it will happen in the near future. I promise. And as far, again, I'm going to go back to some of the comments after Scott. And so we will kind of have a little mini Mono-y Monday after Scott Rabalais talks more about LSU firing. But look, that's the story of the day, y'all. That's what so many people came here to talk about and to listen to. So that is what we're going to talk about. We will get back to Saints in a little bit. But the story of the day, obviously, LSU firing Brian Kelly, and Scott Rabalais has as good an insight as anyone. I urge everyone to excuse me, I'm a little verklempt this morning. I urge everyone to go take a peek at his column, NOLA.com/sports/LSU. Scott Rabalais' column on, and I think he has a reaction similar to the one that I had. I mean, going into Saturday, I was on the record saying I would be shocked if it would happen. But then after Saturday was over, in the way that it ended, I'm like, I just don't think you can go on any further. I mean, you can't. It's not just losing to Texas A&M. It's that you just got your ass handed to you in the second half. I mean, you were not in that game at all in the second half. And it started from the get-go, them coming out of the locker room pissed off and making adjustments, and Elko doing a fantastic job, and Kelly sitting there yelling at his coordinators and having a back and forth with Garrett Nussmeier for like the 5th time this year. And, I gave Garrett Nussmeier some crap about, 4 or 5 weeks ago when he and Kelly kind of, I don't want to say a shouting match, but Kelly was giving him the business, I guess. And Nussmeier was basically ignored him and went straight to the bench. And I gave Nussmeier grief. And you know what? Come to think of, now that I see like how the rest of the season has been going, maybe I didn't know the backstory enough to know that maybe, and again, this is a maybe, so I don't know the answer. Maybe Brian Kelly's just an asshole. Maybe he's just tough to get along with. Maybe there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about or you didn't know about, and maybe we'll never know about. And Garrett Nussmeier says, I'm just not going to talk about this in public. Maybe that's the case. But now that we've seen how the last few weeks have progressed, maybe that's been the case, and we just didn't want to see it. Whatever it is, I can't believe I'm going to say this here 3 days after I said, or 2 days after I said it was never going to happen. But it was the right move. You had to do it. You had no choice. You can't have, people taking over the LSU student section and celebrating, and you got, as Kelly's walking off the field, you got the fired Kelly. You can't have that and move on. There was no coming back from that. It's the right thing to do. All right, again, Scott Rabalais coming on in less than a minute. But first, I got to tell you, we told you earlier we're letting you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth, whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? That's better than asking the question of who's going to be the next LSU coach. That's the best question of the day. How do they do it? After their complimentary evaluation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline, they'll begin an extensive auction process from among established private equity funds from around the whole wide world. That's right, the whole wide world. They'll maximize the return for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform, and there are very few companies like them in this area, and none with their dedication and success. They are fully licensed. They're ready to serve you, so get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. You know what's really important. I'm not going to say that the next LSU coach is not really important. It is. I'm not going to say, is the next quarterback, is it going to be Shough or Rattler? Is that important? Of course that's important. But you know what's really important? The rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right, here we go. 21 minutes and 26 seconds of Scott Rabalais. And good Lord, what happened while I was reading the ad? Is there a trolling going on back there? Oh, Lord. All right. I will show relevant comments, and I mean relevant comments, while Scott's on. If you have something to say about what Scott's saying or whatever, but realize this is a taped interview. It was when I could get him. We recorded this morning about 4 hours ago. Scott Rabalais, columnist at The Advocate and here at NOLA.com. Again, 21-26. We'll see you on the other side. Dattitude podcast this Monday morning presented by Evangeline Securities. Here with our own columnist, Scott Rabalais. And Rab, I just want to start this with, I read your column this morning, and I want to start with the end. And you talking about it winning a national championship again in LSU. It's not something that's unheard of, which is why Brian Kelly's gone this morning. But you write, talking about a national championship, someone will win a national championship at LSU. One day, it won't be Brian Kelly. After a whirlwind Sunday, that fact is still sinking in, which goes to say that even though the fans have been calling for it, and it's a weird moment, I think, where the fans are not surprised, but I think some of us are surprised. And I got to say, there's 56 million reasons why I don't want to say shocked, might not be the word, but I am very surprised even after this just unacceptable loss to Texas A&M.
Yeah, I thought when I got up yesterday, if I was up, I think I was, I thought Joe Sloan's getting fired, the offensive coordinator. And in fact, reports are coming out now that he has been let go. No surprise there since they've changed coaches. And then maybe Brad Davis, the offensive line coach, would get fired. I thought Kelly, after a loss like that last night, I thought it was inevitable. But I wasn't sure that LSU was going to decide that they could spend the money or be on the hook for the money needed to get rid of him. But at the same time, once it all came out yesterday, it was clear this is untenable. And it was an open date week. Yeah, that just he couldn't coach another game for LSU. So here we are once again with this coaching carousel. But as I wrote in my column, Jim, to think that we'd be here on October 27th when back on August 30th, after they beat Clemson on the road, which you thought at the time was a great win. And they finally break this long losing streak in season openers. And they're on their way. They're going to the college football playoff. Maybe they could win it. Maybe they got that kind of team. People were saying this is the best team in the country. And for them to fire him now is amazing. But it wasn't just the Texas A&M game. It wasn't just the loss of them through the last 4 games. It was almost 4 years of talking big and never quite delivering, and caught up with them.
You talk about that, and actually, it was 2-1. I mean, 2-1 that LSU would go to the college football playoff after that, and which is just how crazy, how weird it is to think that after that, we didn't know that Clemson probably wasn't as good as we thought they were. I mean, but nobody could know. Maybe if LSU loses that game, maybe Clemson's better, and maybe that game sent them on a spiral. Who knows? Yeah. But it just goes to show you that, and you write this as well, how different college football is today. I mean, just 3 losses, and I'm not saying fans should want anything less. I'm not suggesting that LSU fans should want anything but a national championship. I get that, but it's just crazy to think that when I was growing up and Charlie Mack was the coach at LSU and was for a long time, that, if you went 7-4 and you went to the Blue Bonnet Bowl every year, that was outstanding. And if you threw in, once every 5 years, you threw in a chance that maybe this is the year, that was okay. But that's not even kind of okay anymore.
Not for a program like LSU. Like it's and we're only in the second year of this, but the 12-team college football playoff has created a dynamic for programs the caliber of LSU or who think themselves to be, at the top level of college football, that if you make the playoff, you've had a good season. If you win it, you've had a great season. Obviously, if you don't, it's a failure. It's a pass-fail grade now. And LSU failed last year. They also failed in 2023 with this amazing offense, super terrific offense they had, led by Jaden Daniels on his way to the Heisman Trophy, who may have piled up some of those stats because the defense was so bad, but nonetheless he did it. And then again this year, a third loss. You still, I guess, mathematically have a chance, but realistically, there's very little chance LSU is going to get in the playoff this year. So it's kind of like that, and you can't afford, as a coach or a program, you can't afford too many of those failures to stack up. LSU, everybody, people are still saying, people like Josh Pate and people, Matt Barry and Paul Feidenbaum are saying this is a top 5, top 10 job, and I really believe that LSU has fired 6 of their last 7 coaches.
That's where I was going next. Yeah,
but. I think for where they're positioned, it is still one of the very top jobs in the country, and it can be. So you've got to be, if you're LSU, you've got to be in or contending for the playoff, every year, and to already be out of contention before November is just unacceptable. And like I said, the failures caught up with Brian Kelly.
You go back to, and when I was going to LSU, Bill Onsparger was the coach. So then after that, ever since Bill Onsparger left, the only coach that hasn't left LSU under his own volition, meaning he hasn't been fired, is Nick Saban. Mike Archer, Curly Hallman, Jerry DiNardo, Les Miles, Ogeron, they were all fired before the season was over, right? I mean, this is just, it's not just, you're not even making it through a season. People get frustrated.
In that way, LSU's been ahead of the curve. People fire coaches in season,
It's just a crazy thought. And again, I'm not saying any of these firings were wrong. I'm not, we could go through them with a fine tooth comb. We don't have that much time to do that. But I'm just, that's the impatience that programs have now. If you don't get me a natty, you're getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, there's so much money at stake now, not just for the coaches and the programs, but with the players and everything. And this is what what created such an era of doom and gloom among the LSU faithful, and I assume we can say among the LSU administration after they lost to Vanderbilt. They've got to run the table to make the playoff. This year, starting with a win against Texas A&M, and for a half, it looked like they had a chance, and of course, then it just all fell in on them. But next year was always shaping up to be a tough go, because you're going to lose all these starters on defense. You're going to lose Garrett Nussmeier, and if you don't make the playoff this year, how are you going to get people invested or willing to invest in your program, for lack of a better term, like they did this year to help them raise the $18 million to put together and retain this roster? So it's next year was going to be very difficult with a 9-game SEC schedule and Clemson coming in here. You can't figure Clemson's going to be bad again, right? They're going to be better. And so, of course, LSU brilliantly decides to announce they're going to raise ticket prices on Friday right before this debacle of a loss. Yeah. Now, though, if you hire the right guy, you can sell hope and maybe make that more palatable. I'm not saying that's why they fired Brian Kelly. I'm not saying that for a second, but it's all kind of tied in a way. So yeah, this year, if this year didn't hit, next year is looking like a tough season no matter what, and next year can be, a quote unquote rebuilding season for somebody new. So
you talk about ticket prices, and interestingly enough, Governor Jeff Landry was talking before Saturday's A&M game that, hey, this is you're not exactly picking the right time. You better win if you're going to raise ticket prices. How much, with the lack of an LSU president right now, and their speculation that there could be one hired very soon. But how much do you think that the governor is weighing in, especially with this coaching hire? Because like you talked about, the word came down, and I mean, it didn't come down this way for a reason. I think, obviously there's always backstory. We may or may not ever find out what happened behind the scenes, but the word was that Joe Sloan was going to get fired, and that, Brad Davis was going to get fired. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, about 3 or 4 hours later, oh, wait, it's not Joe Sloan, it's Brian Kelly. And so again, this is pure speculation, and that's okay. But I mean, do we think that the governor had any involvement in any of this?
I don't think, and I'm going to make a very historical reference here. I don't think the governor is as heavily involved in like a Huey Long or John McKibben.
Edwards.
I don't think he's that into athletics. I mean, he's weighed in at times on obviously the whole thing. They need to stand for the national anthem thing, which never went anywhere, and the Mike the Tiger thing. But those are but he's interested in obviously his political future, and he wants to be reelected, and his poll numbers aren't great. And if he can't, I had someone say this to me yesterday, if he can help LSU find a new successful coach, then and get rid of an unpopular coach, then that could help him, with obviously a very large constituency, which are LSU fans, one of the largest.
There's no doubt about that.
So I think it's going to be very interesting. This is the other side of this, the B side, I guess you'd say, of this whole thing. Is Scott Woodward, the athletic director, going to be allowed to make this hire? And if not him, who? Yeah, I think from what I've heard, they're probably going to have a new president in place before the Alabama game. So certainly in time to someone to sign off on a new hire. But Woodward is he's got the anchor on his resume of the Jimbo Fisher whiff, and he wasn't responsible for the huge contract that led to Jimbo's $75 million buyout, but he did hire him, and there was a swing and a miss. And now he's got the swing and a miss of Brian Kelly. Is he going to get a third time at bat? Because Jim, you can easily make the argument this is the most important hire in the history of the LSU athletic program, because you can't do this again in 4 years. You're still paying off Orgeron. You're not going to finish paying him off until December for the quaint sum of $17 million.
Absolutely.
This buyout. And now you can be paying off Brian Kelly. We don't know what the final number will be. They're negotiating, but at the moment they're on the hook for him for over $50 million. And so, and then you got to pay the new coach, and you got to get players and stuff like that. It's LSU still had a big fix, and Scott Woodward going to be allowed to be the guy. Now no one at the time said, very few people said, "Oh, Brian Kelly, that's not going to work out. He's just going to crash and burn eventually." And he's hired Kim Mulkey, and he's hired Jay Johnson, and the coach I cover in the spring, Jay Clark in gymnastics. He gave him the head coaching job, but he's won a national title. But obviously, this is by far the big fish, the big kahuna, the one that's got to win and bring in revenue for all these other sports except for men's basketball and baseball. So this is a hugely important hire, and they got to get it right. And who's going to be getting it right is one of the big questions.
That's as close as we'll ever get to talking politics on the show, I promise you. So I just had to throw that in there. But I do think it was important. It was part of your column, and it's actually been part of the story, and I thought it was important to talk about. All right, 2 more questions for you. Scott Rabalais with us this Monday morning on very special Dattitude podcast. Not special that we're doing a pod on a Monday morning, but it's special that we have guests. We don't usually have guests, but we have 2 very, very important guests here on this Monday morning as we talk about the news of LSU firing Brian Kelly. You talk about Scott Woodward and where they will go next. And, I've got a little graphic here. Koki Riley wrote his top 15 candidates. And I thought it was an interesting list, especially I don't think anyone under Nick Saban has any kind of, I don't think Willie Fritz has a chance, but when you're tasked to write 15 candidates, you got to find 15 candidates somewhere. First, before we start talking about potential next coaches at LSU, I mean, we don't think that Nick Saban has any inkling to get out of his cush job at ESPN and get back into the NIL fray, do we? Can we? I don't want to squash everyone's dreams, but that's probably not happening, right? Probably not. But Jim, he would be my first call if I was doing the hiring. I would say Nick. I'm gonna make you tell me no.
I'm making it no. And if he says no, I'm out. He's gonna be 74 on this week on Halloween. It's his birthday.
I didn't know that.
Him and Dale Brown share the same birthday. How you like that?
I did not know that. Wow.
So he's gonna be 74, but for 2 or 3 years, to get the program going in the right direction, then we hire somebody that. So if he says no, which I feel 99% sure he would. Then you say, okay, who's my first call to? My first, to me, it's got to be Lane Kiffin or Dan Lanning. Two guys who obviously worked for Nick. I think Lane Kiffin would have come 4 years ago, and I don't think LSU was ready to. That's just my impression. I don't think LSU was ready for Lane Kiffin. Summerall's an interesting one. Everybody figures he's going to get a great job somewhere. Obviously they're in playoff contention. The playoff complicates things, of course.
Would LSU though, Rab? Would LSU? And look, I'm a big Summerall guy. I think what he's done at Tulane, even after Willie Fritz left, has been amazing. And I'm all about young coaches, and so he's actually would be high on my list. I think Lanning would probably be number 1 on my list. Summerall would be number 2 on mine. Not that my list matters. That being said, though, do you think LSU has it in them to go after someone that's basically young and unproven, but the eye test says that John Summerall is the next great young coach in college football, in my opinion?
That's a very interesting question, and it would go against type of what Scott Woodward.
Absolutely.
Now you could say Jay Johnson, the baseball coach, was that kind of, and it's not an apples to apples comparison, but you could say Jay Johnson was that kind of coach. He's been good, but is he going to be that good? That's who Nick Saban was back in 1999.
Absolutely, he was.
Everybody, the book on Saban was, everyone says he's going to be great, but what has he done so far? And he hadn't done anything great to that point. But Mark Emmert took a role on him to hire him for the also quaint figure of $1.3 billion a year, and they got him, and it started this tremendous quarter century of football that they've had. Some are interesting. I think there's also, it's probably diminishing. There's also the political stigma of LSU hiring the coach from Tulane or hiring the coach from UL Lafayette. Like they didn't want to hire Billy Napier. Never even got a shot at the job.
Well, that didn't work out of Florida either.
No, it didn't work out, and it probably wouldn't have worked out for him either. Summerall is very interesting, and I think of all these guys that you can't get, he would be, and he's gonna be courted by a lot of people. I think if it's not Nick Saban, which I agree with you, it's almost certainly it wouldn't be. I think you have to go younger than Brian Kelly. That's why I think Willie Fritz, who's 65, is someone that's obviously he's done a great job and right. He's winning this year. Clark Lee's intriguing because obviously he's doing a great job at Vandy, but how much is Diego Pavia? We both remember Curly Hallman when LSU hired him. It's like, this guy's great. Well, it was because Brett Favre was great. I mean, Hall of Fame great. Brent Key at Georgia Tech is also very intriguing. That's been a tougher place to win, and they're off the best start in our lifetimes. Kelvin Shepard, Marcus Freeman. I don't think he's going to leave.
They're not going to hire another Notre Dame coach.
No, Kelvin Shepard, former LSU great DC.
A lot of talk about that. Yeah,
he's like. The guy who was, I'm blanking on the name, he was here in 2019. Now it was with the Bills, the offensive coordinator. He's
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady. He's probably going to be getting a NFL head coaching job one day. And James Franklin is a younger Brian Kelly. Can't win the big game. Rhett Lashley, maybe Alex Golesh. That's another guy who's likely to get a job. And Kalani Sataki, that's the guy. Is he going to come to this part of the country?
He's been at BYU for a little bit. Yeah,
they're all intriguing names. One name not on his list that my brother brought up to me, who is a huge LSU's fan, is Dabo Swinney.
Uh-huh.
Dabo Swinney's clearly not happy with the level of unhappiness that he's dealing with at Clemson. You're basically saying you're a bunch of ungrateful people. Now Dabo, of course, he's criticized for not embracing the NIL era and the portal era and everything, but guys had a lot of success. And he might be looking for an out, and you could get him if he's looking for an out. And obviously, would that be interesting if Clemson?
I absolutely agree. And I was talking to actually when Brian Kelly was hired, I was like, if Dabo Swinney would ever even consider LSU, I thought that would be a good hire. Although it's not just one down year with him. It's a few down, and the program has kind of spiraled a little bit. I don't know that LSU would consider, but hey, I don't know. It's worth a thought process. It is worth a thought.
But it's very, very often not your first choice, obviously. But
absolutely true.
But Summerall is one to watch, and like I said, the playoff complicates things potentially. You get some of these guys could be coaching into January. Lane Kiffin obviously has a very interesting decision to make. Florida supposedly going to make him a big target as well. And does he want to go back to the NFL?
I don't see it being Lane Kiffin. I just don't. I mean, I know he's a lot of, and look, and again, I don't want to go off on a tangent. I told you we'd only be here for a few minutes this morning. We're already pressing that. But as far as Lane Kiffin goes, and I've made my bias obvious. I'm not a Lane Kiffin fan at all. I never have been. I mean, maybe you can explain. Some fans think he's the greatest thing since apple pie, and he's never won anything that's that important, to be honest. He wasn't a success in the NFL, which is okay. A lot of people haven't. Nick Saban really wasn't. But, even in college football, he's been good, but he's been great as a coordinator. To me, he's never been great as a head coach, and he's not that young. He's 50 years old. So
with Lane, there's always the intrigue of, boy, he's been pretty good. He's gotten better.
Right.
And if you bring him here, wherever here is, Baton Rouge, Gainesville, whatever, you bring him here, he's really going to take off. So I understand. Dan Lanning is obviously he's done a great job in the short run.
I'm a big fan of that.
We didn't mention Eli Drinkwitz. He's done a lot with a little at Missouri, but he hasn't won a lot of big games either. Against ranked teams. He and Clark Lee are kind of like, is he really going to be good if you transplant him somewhere else? But it's all a crapshoot.
It is. And that's something that obviously Rab will get into probably after the season's over. I mean, Frank Wilson's got the reins of this team until then, and I think Frank is a perfect guy to steer this ship the rest of the way. And I don't even know what you would consider a success for this season. Do you just completely write the season off, or do you say, look, going to Alabama, and boy, it would be some kind of story if LSU won on the road, because it's not out of the question that LSU could go to Alabama and win that game. It's really not. And you never know when a coach is going to come and fire somebody up. So I think it's
not. And Frank's a good choice. He was a head coach at McNeese, obviously Louisiana guy, someone who can maybe help you hold this recruiting class together where it stands right now. So, yeah, a very, very good choice. And I don't think he's likely to have a chance to be the next head coach permanently, but a good choice for now.
Rab, I really appreciate you coming on with me on this Monday morning to spend 20 minutes here with me. And it was just important for our show to have two trusted voices in our area, and that's you and Mike Detillier. And I really appreciate your time. And we'll talk to you soon, and we'll be following your columns as we go down this road. Once again, you have been part of quite a few of these coaching searches, and seven of them. It's a touchdown for you, Scott Rabalais. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully before next year's Masters here on the
Anytime, Jim. Thank you.
7. I can't imagine having to do this 7 times. Well, I mean, I guess I can, because when I started in this business, Jim Moore was the coach of the New Orleans Saints. Who was the coach at it? Let me see. Who was the coach as I do this live on the air? Who was the LSU football coach in 1990? They finished 5-6, and Mike Archer was still the coach. And we know that he got fired. I think it was the next year that they got fired. So, yeah, that was pretty bad. Who was the quarterback of LSU Tigers in 1990? Let's see. Statistics. Again, you're on live air, Derry. What are you doing? Chad Loop and Saul Graves. Do y'all remember the LSU Tigers in 1990? Listen to this. Just to show how long ago, how the game has changed. In 1990, LSU passed as a team, not Chad Loop and Saul Graves, not one or the other. As a team, they passed for 1,755 yards. That's it. Wow. The leading rusher on that team, y'all remember Harvey Williams? He rushed for 953 yards. LSU had 1,700 yards passing and 1,700 yards rushing. just goes to show, and the reason why I bring that up and why I wanted to look it up, not just because that's who was the coach when I started in this gig way back when, but you think about how the game has changed, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but where LSU is now, and I'm not saying it's unreal. Look, many times I've said that LSU fans are the most unrealistic fans on planet Earth, and I still actually believe that. However, it's not unrealistic to say your team should, at the bare, and I mean bare minimum, when it comes down to the last week of the season, that your team has an excellent chance to make the college football playoffs. Now, whether they make it or not, I mean, if you say they don't make it and that's not good enough for you, fine. I don't think that's out of the realm of possible. I think it's a little ridiculous to say if our team isn't basically one game away from a natty or don't win the natty every 3 years. That's absurd. Nobody's doing that. Okay. So that's a little bit over the top. However, with the 12-team playoff and you're LSU, you should at least be in the playoff 2 out of 3 years and probably all 3 years, every year in that last week of the season be like our playoff chances hinge on whatever that last game is or whatever. They're not sniffing it. I mean, honestly, they're just, again, it sucks that you got to pay this dude that much money. Maybe we'll hear in the end. And no one's really talked about this, but it's possible they were in negotiations yesterday. Maybe it'll come out that they made a deal and they don't have to pay him that much. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, they're still going to have to pay him a lot of money. I mean, you would think the absolute bare minimum is like 30 to 35 million. And if you hope he gets another job and then you don't have to pay him all of that. I mean, that's the bare minimum. But if I'm Brian Kelly and I'm going into a room yesterday, even if everybody and their grandma wants me gone, I'm still saying, pay me what you owe me. I'll leave 56 million or 53 million, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. I don't know, man, but where this team is now and what the playoff has done to change college football, mostly for the better, but it's not all for the better. NIL is a mess. It had to be done. It had to happen. There was no other way around it. The NCAA backed themselves into a corner. It's their fault. If you would have just paid players back in the day when you should have been paying them back when, we wouldn't be in this situation now. Players wouldn't be getting millions of dollars to play college football. Title IX would actually mean something in the grand scheme of things. But that's not where we are. The NCAA has fouled this up for years and decades. Actually, decades. I say years, decades. And so now we're in this boat. And because of where we are, LSU is a school to where you have to win. You have to be, like I said, bare minimum. Playoffs, at least 2 out of 3 years, maybe 3 out of 4. And even in the one where you don't make the playoff, you need to be in contention well into November. Not being in contention on October 27th is absolutely unacceptable. And it's happened time and time again. And it's, you got to find a coach where that's not going to happen. And this next coach, it's not going to get any easier for this next coach, whoever it is. I mean, I've made my opinions clear. We'll talk more about it as we go forward because we'll have plenty of time to talk about it because they're not going to make a decision in the near future. I don't think it's going to be a little bit. I mean, whoever the next coach is coaching somewhere else right now. It's not going to be someone sitting on his couch. I saw a lot in the comments, and I'm sorry that I've shared as many comments on a Mono Monday as I normally would, and I will when I get the Saints in just a second. But, the thing is, it's not going to be like, I know a lot of people are asking for Joe Brady, and Gabe's right. And again, I'll talk to this with Gabe in a minute, but it's not going to be Joe Brady. He's not going to lead. Joe Brady has aspirations of being an NFL coach. He was in rumors to be, not realistic rumors, but he was among candidates to be NFL head coach over the past two seasons, whatever. He's going to be an NFL head coach one day, I think. He's not going to go to LSU. Oh, but if you pay him no. Why would you pay him that anyway? It's not worth it. So no, you could do that. You could get someone else. That's of that ilk. Sure. 4 years ago, maybe people said he was too young then, whatever. It ain't happening with Joe Brady. And so I think that right now, again, as we transition to Saints, I'm going to talk about Saints for about 10 minutes before we bring Gabe in, because there's some things that I need to say. But I think that the top three candidates, and in no particular order, my order is this. My order is Dan Lanning and then John Sumrall. And if they don't get one of those two guys, we'll wait and see. But the three candidates that we mentioned, you have to add Lane Kiffin to the list. He's going to be mentioned as a candidate. There's no question. If y'all don't know what I think about Lane Kiffin by now, you either weren't listening or you just jumped in the show and who is this dude and whatever. I think Lane Kiffin is a doofus. He's a great offensive mind. There's no question. He was obviously hugely successful as offensive coordinator, but I just don't understand why you'd be hiring someone who's younger than Brian Kelly, but has had similar success to Brian Kelly. What has Lane Kiffin done? Nothing. Again, and I'm not talking about him as an OC. He runs his mouth. He makes, in my decision, really bad in-game decisions on being a head coach. Again, play calling. I think he's probably not probably. He is. He's a really good recruiter. He's as far as the offensive mastermind. Okay, yeah, it's fun. But he makes some in-game decisions that I think are just bonkers. And I think it's part of the reason why I don't think that LSU actually is going to want him, first of all. Relski says Lane going to take that job. I don't think Lane's going to be offered the job. I really don't. At least I don't think he's going to be the first choice. Not anything that I know. It's pure speculation, but pretty much everything right now is pure speculation. That's pure speculation, Jim Derry. Of course it is. Everything you hear or see over the course of the next couple months is going to be pure speculation. From what I read through tea leaves, okay? And obviously I wasn't right about Brian Kelly, but what I read through tea leaves is that I don't think Lane Kiffin is a fit here, and I don't think he's going to come in. Michael Trahan says Kiffin's not leaving Ole Miss. I think at this point, I would probably be surprised if he doesn't leave Ole Miss. Now, what do you do if, and this is a possibility. I'm going to give I said this. I don't know if I said this on the air. You know what? I said it on Mike Detillier's show in the LSU pregame on Saturday. This is where I said this. I am, obviously I don't like the dude at all. It's clear. However, that being said, I watched the game on Saturday and you got to give credit where credit is due. And I thought he coached a very good game against Oklahoma. Now, he made a couple interesting fourth down calls that I don't necessarily like, but that happens in every game all the time now. That's part of football. So, I don't know. We'll see. Who that daddy says he wants, let's correct the wrong and hire back Nick. Nick doesn't want to be here. Besides that, I got to be honest. And this is going to be blasphemy when I say this. I don't want Nick Saban. He's 74 years old. He doesn't want to coach. He obviously doesn't want to coach. So why would you try to lure someone into doing something he doesn't want to do? That never works out. Larry Gibson, absolutely not. Deion Sanders will be available next season. Yeah, he will be, but not to coach LSU. If any major program gives Deion Sanders a head coaching job, they cray-cray. Saying. Oh, so now UBN's pressing buttons now. First of all, obviously this would never happen because Dan Campbell's the head coach in the NFL. But I get it. We're going to play hypothetical. Dan Campbell or Lane Kiffin, if that's my only two choices. And see, you're being a goofball. Lance Stobart says death. You're being a goofball, but I'm going to be serious when I answer this question. And there's only one answer, Dan Campbell or Lane Kiffin. And the LSU program. No more football. No, I'm just kidding. You would have to say Lane Kiffin in that situation
because Lane Kiffin knows how to recruit and Dan Campbell is an NFL coach. So anyway, all right. Moving on. Again, I am going to switch gears here for a minute because I do want to talk about the Saints, and we're going to come back to LSU. I know Gabe has his thoughts, and we're actually going to end the show with our Monday Night Football prediction. Dude, I'm just saying, I know I keep saying we've been hot, but I don't know if y'all are listening or not. We've been making y'all money. A certain host was 3-0 and I don't know, plus 50 this week in point differential. I don't even know what it was. It was close to that. I'm just saying. I think Gabe was 3-0 too. You be in? I played the song. You know what? Y'all want to have some fun? Give me 16 seconds. Don't go anywhere. This is for UBN. Give me 16 seconds. That's all I ask.
Uncle Big, can we make some picks today? Mom, can we please?
I had to do it. I had to do it. It's going to be played every pick'em day for the rest of the year until maybe I don't know. Quovadas wants to know what I think of Mario Cristobal in Miami. I don't think he's going to leave Miami, Quo. I don't think they're going to. But I'm not a fan of a coach who multiple times now has kind of spit the bit. Now, going into the season, that's a little harsh on him. I get it. But going into the season, I don't know that people expected Miami to be as good as they started. But, man, you can't spit the bit in that situation. You're in the ACC. I don't know. I'm not a super big fan. I don't think he's leaving anyway. Who Dat fam says we need a head coach that will bring in quarterbacks, period. Well, we've been having that. I mean, and if you're talking about the quarterback we have now, I still think he's a really good quarterback. He's obviously, I'm not making excuses for him, but he was excellent last year. He's going to be a pretty good pro, I think. And he's played, that's the toughest SOB. I mean, seriously. Garrett Nussmeier probably needed to go to the hospital after that. No, he's out there still playing. UBN's 2-8 when the song's played from minus 100 points. Dun, 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 dun. Rob, could John Summerall be a college version of Dan Campbell? Actually, might be a decent coach. Don't put John Summerall and Dan Campbell in the same sentence. Rob. Lance says that song cracks him up. We're going to play it some more. All right. Again, switching gears, I got some clips to play because the question of the day, obviously, when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, if you want to get your Saints questions in, you better get them in a hurry because it's a rare Monday where we're just not spending a lot of time on the Saints. And normally, this would be a 2-hour show talking about the Shough Rattler situation. But obviously, Brian Kelly took a hold of that. Well, when we were doing the post-game show on the floor of the Dome yesterday and started talking about the Saints and Zach Ewing called up the stats, I honestly couldn't believe. Shough came in second drive of the third quarter. He threw 30 passes. 30 passes. That just kind of tells you, if y'all like passing, this team has no running game. Look, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. And you look I've been consistently putting the Russian offensive stats, not a player, in the stat box here. I've been consistently putting the Rush offensive stats because they keep getting worse and worse. That's embarrassing. 15 carries for 48 yards in the game for the New Orleans Saints. They have, Bobby Hebert said last night when I was coming home, I listened to Bobby instead of putting the night game on. And I don't usually, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. I really thought we were going to talk more about Brian Kelly and they didn't. But he brought up a point. He said the Saints have the worst running back room in the NFL, and it's hard to argue with them. Now, a lot of that has to do with how bad the offensive line is, and they've been terrible. You run 15 times in a game, in an NFL game, for 48 yards. Shaheed and Olave had more touches than they ran the ball. Shaheed and Olave
And they had their own problems. That's a whole different story that we may or may not get into today. That may be more for Thursday. But 17 receptions for 138 yards. Meanwhile, and that's just those two guys. The rushing offense, 15, and that includes Rattler and Shough. 15 carries, 48 yards. Trade Alvin Kamara, please, for the love of God. Give that dude what he needs to get and to go play for a winner to finish out his career. He can come back when he's done. He can do that thing that players do like in, I don't know, June or July, and he can sign a one-day contract and finish his career as a New Orleans Saint and wear the jersey or whatever, but do the guy a favor. Come on, man. Do him a favor. Little Smoke says the Saints need to draft a quarterback and develop him. I'm fine with any one of them at quarterback. I want Lenore Sellers most. Still going to give Shough a chance, though. And that leads us into this. You have to. And the question of the day, if you're listening after the fact and you don't see the live show and the title at the bottom or in the lower third is the move to Tyler Shough permanent? I have been on the record for more than weeks, more than months. I've now said it for a year and a half. That even before he played one down, it might not have been fair before he played one down, and maybe I was a hypocrite for saying it then because I'm saying Tyler Shough, we need to see what we have. And I didn't necessarily think that about Spencer Rattler. And the reason why it's a different situation, I think, is because Spencer Rattler was a 5th-round pick drafted by a moron as a coach. That was the difference, in my opinion. And look, I'm going to repeat what Mike Detillier said. Spencer Rattler has surprised me. He's definitely better than I thought he would be. He's definitely better than I never thought he would be as good as he's been, put it that way. However, there's nothing that I've seen over the past 15 games of his play, if you include the half that he came in relief, 1-13 as a starter, 1-14 overall. There's nothing that I've seen from Spencer Rattler that could lead any sane, rational football fan to believe that he could be the potential at quarterback. Now, even the Rattler fans now, and I know he's not here right now, but Mark Satanovich was coming in, speaking of trolling, the biggest Rat fan that we've had. It's time for Rat to go and being funny, and the Rat jersey sales are down and blah, blah, blah. The one that even came in last week and said, it's still Rat's job. He's not going to lose it. He had one bad game. Well, it turns out it wasn't just one bad game. We knew this already. We've been talking about reality on this show here forever. Even if you are still in that Rat corner, okay? Or if you're like, Tyler Shough sucks too. Maybe he does. You've got to see 9 games of Tyler Shough. I said it here on the show on Friday. Zach and I were talking. Look, I got the Brian Kelly thing wrong, and I shouted that out to the rooftops. So let me say where I got one right. Even though I didn't necessarily think it was going to happen, because actually the reason why I didn't think it was going to happen is because I thought Spencer Rattler would have a bounce back game. I thought he would play a little bit better. He didn't. But I said that I thought it could happen in this game yesterday. And so now you're in a position to where I don't think you can go back. And again, let's play this clip. I'm going to play the clip from Kellen Moore. The clip from Kellen Moore is 1 minute and 31 seconds. And listen to everything he says about where do we think that this team is going in the future? Are they going to stick with Shough, or are they going to go back to Rattler? There's a specific thing he says in there, which is why I think it's pretty clear they're not going to go back. I think both he and, again, I got a Spencer Rattler clip coming up. They all know that Shuck's going to be the quarterback. I would be very surprised if they go back now. But again, listen to this minute and 31 seconds, and this will tell you why I think it's a done deal. I don't know if Spencer Rattler gets another chance with this team. We'll see. I'll talk about that on the other side as well.
Yeah, we just need to find a way to create something on offense. It has more to do with the offense collectively. We're just not executing and playing at a high enough standard, and we got to find a way to move the football consistently, protect the football, and score points. And so, this is a pure full offensive evaluation point. We're not there. I think we just got to evaluate this whole thing in the next 48 hours on offense. Find the solutions that give us the best chance to win. Thought Tyler went in there and he looked the part. He made some plays. The one interception was unfortunate. Gave us a chance to convert there. And so, we'll obviously make that evaluation here quickly and make some decisions moving forward. But, this had more to do with the whole offense just not playing well enough and hopefully trying to generate some form of a spark there. Unfortunately, wasn't able to be done. Spencer, I thought, he has done plenty of good through the course of this season when you look at it from a bigger perspective. We didn't move the ball well enough. We created some turnovers in this game, unfortunately, and so we need to find a way to get the thing going. And, that's our project and that's our efforts moving forward, is to find those solutions moving forward with however it looks. Again, I'm not into flip-flopping quarterbacks and all this sort of stuff. Again, this had just an element of, lately not executing high enough football and not playing well enough on offense and trying to create a spark. And so, I'm not into this back and forth game, but we do have to make some decisions here moving forward, really as a whole offense collectively with a lot of positions.
I mean, it's pretty simple. He's not into this back and forth. He's not into this flip-flopping. I'm about to show a few comments here. I think that's pretty much all you need to know. It's not going to take 48 hours. It doesn't need 48 hours to figure this out. I think that the move has already been made, and once I think the reason why it hadn't been made before to even let him play, except for a brief moment in the Seattle game, and the reason why he didn't make the move in the Chicago game, when he absolutely had every chance to do so and didn't. I think he's known from the get-go that he would, and we've talked about this many times on this show. If you're new here, we've talked about this based in reality. Okay. I don't think there was any doubt at any point. I said back in August, the over-under that of amount of games that both quarterbacks, not one, the over-under amount of that both quarterbacks would play, bare minimum, was 5.5. And if I had to pick one, I would take the over on both. I still take the over on both. Obviously, Spencer Rattler has already surpassed the over. He started 8 games. I think barring an injury or barring him just being god-awful, I think Tyler Shough's going to start 9. I think you're not going to see them go back the other way. Again, barring injury or barring something just ridiculously insane, like he just stinks that poorly, they're not going to go back. You have a 9-game tryout now, Tyler Shough, because the Saints are going to have a decision in the offseason. And not only, think about it. What do you want to go into next? Just say that Shough is no better than Rattler and maybe even a little worse. I don't know what he's going to. I have no idea whether he's going to be better or worse. I don't know. I suspect in the beginning, especially going to LA, that he's probably going to be worse. His first NFL start is most likely going to be at the Los Angeles Rams. And they are, in my opinion, a team that has a chance. I'm not saying they're gonna. They have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. They are going to be in contention to go to the Super Bowl. So that's where you're going to start your first NFL game. So where is this going to go? I don't think he's going to look that great in his first game. The Saints, that you see it on the bottom left hand of the screen. The Saints are 13.5-point underdogs at the LA Rams. What were they, Gabe? Like 14.5-point underdogs at Buffalo? Something along those lines. Maybe even a lot less than, somewhere around that. So basically they're the same underdog at LA that they were at Buffalo. What do we have to expect? I have no idea. But you got to make the move. There's no more parachute. There's no more excuses. There's no more reason. You've got to know the last 9 games are auditions, and not just for Tyler Shough, but for a lot of other players on this team. As you heard Kellen Moore say at the end, where it kind of got cut off, but that's what he was going into next. I had to cut off the clip. But it's not just an audition. I think for Tyler Shough, it's an audition for Danny Stutzman, for Quincy Riley, for whoever else. Cooley had a good game today. The defense played very well. But what are you going to do going forward? It's an audition for a lot of players going the rest of the way. Devin Neal, and here, as I get to the comments, it's a good transition. Lance says, is there no running game by choice? Kellen was called out for not running the ball in Dallas. Philly players went to Kellen Moore and told him to run the ball. Is it that we can't or we won't? I think you have seen over the past 4 weeks that we can't. And I say we, the New Orleans Saints, can't run the football. A huge reason for that is because your offensive line is terrible, at least between the tackles. Now that Eric McCoy is gone,
Your guards are maybe the two. You have maybe the two worst starting guards, the collective unit. Not maybe. I dare someone to find. And look, Cincinnati's are probably pretty bad. But I dare someone. Go out there and find me a worse guard combination than the Saints have. That's not akin to being able to run the football. And even if the Saints had the 2009 Saints offensive line, you think they'd be able to run the football? Alvin Kamara doesn't look like he wants to be here. I'm not going to get into that again. I've already talked about it. Devin Neal is a rookie and a 6th-round rookie at that. What's he going to be able to do? 15 carries for 48 yards. Tyler Shough's going to have to run. I don't know. Douglas says part of the problem in running game is a young quarterback's best friend. Yeah, and none of our young quarterbacks have that best friend. Chad says Shough gets the same chance as Rat, hopefully. Shough definitely seems to be more of a gunslinger thrower than Rat. Not sure if that's good or bad. Look, one thing you're going to say with Tyler Shough, and I'm telling you right now, forget this week and last week. Before last Sunday at Chicago, Rattler didn't turn the ball over all that much, a lot because he wasn't taking chances. Shough's going to take chances. Shough's going to turn the ball over. There are going to be probably 2 turnovers a game. He's going to average, I bet he averages 2 interceptions a game. But I still want to see overall, I want to see what the upside is. Is the upside higher? Is the upside lead you to believe that he has the potential to be a starting quarterback? That's what I need to see. Again, there's going to be more turnovers than Rattler. I'm promising you that. It's going to happen. Shough doesn't. He's going to be willing to let it fly. Joel DeJean says LSU is bad, Saints are bad. Yeah. Little Smoke says Kamara didn't do the Saints any favor saying he'll retire if traded. First of all, he didn't say that. He might have alluded to it, or maybe you think that he alluded to it. He didn't say that. He never said, and again, I keep asking for the link to where he said it, and people keep sending me the link to where he says he'll go eat cotton candy somewhere or whatever. That doesn't mean he's not. If he gets traded, he's going. I promise you, he's going. Let's see. What else we got? Christopher says, music I played for Big Nick. That's how the Saints have been playing in this part of the year. That's my daughter saying Uncle Big Nick. No, I'm just kidding. Completely kidding. Larry Gibson says that was AK's brilliant way of not to get traded. I don't think so at all. Again, I don't think Mickey Loomis cares one iota. At this point, I got to be honest. I don't think anybody cares. If they get anything for Kamara, and if they could get a 4th-round pick, which to me is about the ceiling for what you could get for Alvin Kamara right now, I think they trade him. Now, if they don't get that, if they get someone's offering a 7th or a 6th, you say, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. Then you don't do it. And Lance says, if he's traded and retires, that's kind of dirty. Does it help the Saints? Yes, but still dirty. He's not going to do it. He's not going to retire. I was waiting for this. It took a long time for this one to come up. Moore needs to start benching clowns on the team. That effort from Johnson, Olave, Shaheed was absolutely BS yesterday. The drops, fumbles, complete BS. Not saying you bench all of them at once. Here's the thing. Who are you going to put in? Who do you think you have to put in, Apathy? Who in the hell is going to play receiver if you take those guys out? Look, nobody had any problems with Shaheed, and now all of a sudden Shaheed is rumored to be on the trade block, and he absolutely stunk yesterday. Forget the stats are on the left-hand side. Shaheed stunk yesterday. But now you're going to jump on Shaheed too? I think it's funny. Nobody was jumping on Chris Olave 2 games ago when he was a one-man he was the only offensive player doing jack squat 2 weeks ago. You know what the Buccaneers did to him yesterday? They double-teamed his ass. I'm not going to take up a Juwan Johnson because he sucked yesterday too. But why? We're like trying to find someone to. Can't you just say, if you benched everyone that sucked for the Saints, you'd have like 4 people playing. Come on, man. Come on. Will Smoke says, don't be surprised if Rattler trade. Unrealistic. Let me read the whole thing again. Don't be surprised if Rattler's traded this offseason. What do you possibly? This is not being mean or a jerk. I'm 100 serious. I tweeted out something yesterday that fans have no clue. Most fans have no realistic clue of how trades work. What do you be a realist? What do you realistically think you could get for Spencer Rattler? I'll wait. Nothing. If you're lucky, you'd get a 7th round pick. I'm not being mean. Why would someone want to trade for Spencer Rattler? You'd be better off, and I mean this wholeheartedly. If you're the Saints, I think Spencer Rattler has shown enough to be a potential good, not average. I think good, not great, good backup quarterback. I'd much rather see the Saints just hold on to Spencer Rattler and maybe make him a backup quarterback, because you're not going to get anything in a trade for him. You're just not. Phil Mariani says, if the Saints don't have the number 1 pick, they should trade for multiple draft picks. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. We just are. Douglas Thornton is saying Kellen Moore hasn't been lighting it on fire with his leadership. He could use a boost himself. First-year coach, first-year quarterback, make it make sense. Oh, it's not a first-year quarterback, it's a second-year quarterback. The one that's going to start next is going to be a first-year quarterback. Look, it's way too early to get on Kellen Moore. He's learning too. And look, the Saints for the first time maybe ever in the Mickey Loomis era realized this is a rebuilding. You're just going to have to go with what you got. It is what it is. You have to be willing to rebuild. You know? Let's see what else we got here going through, because we got to move on. We are so late. I knew it was going to be like that today, but that's okay. I knew today was going to be fun. I knew it was going to be. Look, for me, it was important to get those voices on our show today because of all the stuff that's going on. Adam Varner, a lot of mention of Geno Smith's from who? I don't think any Saints fan has really legitimately mentioned Geno Smith. He's awful. Okay. Shough doesn't work out, get Mendoza. Let's see. I don't think maybe it was in the comment, I didn't see it, but I don't think any realistic person wants Geno Smith. If you're going in the free agent waters, you're not going to go get Geno Smith. This team, look, this team is not, and the difference between now and the big difference between now and 2005, when that was a rebuilding year as well, and they went and got Drew Brees, is they were a Drew Brees away from making themselves competitive again. Who the hell knew that they could go to the NFC Championship in their first game? This team's nowhere near that team. This is more like Ditka's teams. This needs a major rebuild. And even though Jim Haslett, the Saints went and got Jeff Blake, and then Aaron Brooks was okay, and Jim Haslett was competitive and okay, that was a rebuild that probably needed to be happening. And obviously, they won that playoff game in 2000, but then kind of just wallowed off in a mediocreville. That's not what you want for this team. Matthew Raley says, guess it's 3 more years of half the fan base saying we should have kept the backup. Love Spencer, but you cannot win checking down on our lesson. I think, Matthew, people are starting to, even the Rattler fans are starting to open up to realizing it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Daryl Hayden says, Kellen Moore to Shough's agent in early August. Listen, Spencer Rattler has won the job as QB1, but if we are out of playoff contention, say 1-7, we'll start Shough and see what he has. That's why his agent replied, I don't think we like the plan. Yeah, I don't think that's the way that it happened, Daryl. I think that Tyler Shough and his agent and everybody thought that Shough was getting the job. That's just my opinion. Quo wants to know who do I think the Saints rebuild around? Who are core players that will bring us to the next level? You rebuild around your two tackles as a start. I think it will be I will be going against the grain when I say the following. I don't think Chris Olave is going anywhere, and I have no problem with him being your number 1. I think it's more likely you trade Shaheed than Olave. Juwan Johnson, you're kind of stuck with, unfortunately, because you paid him that money. Yeah, so that on offense. On defense, I think you'll have lots of things to build around. If Chase Young could just stay healthy, he proved yesterday how good he can be. He was a monster. Chase Young was a monster yesterday. So I'd start there. I think the interior of the line, we need to see what Vernon Broughton's going to be. Brian Brissy was good. We don't yet know what Stutzman's going to be in the middle. Demario Davis is going to be gone. And I think the defensive backfield could be okay. So I'm not that upset about where they are on defense. Joe Hamilton, I'm going to answer this question because you're tuning in from Germany. Thank you for doing so. You read an article that LSU reached out to Nick Saban. Is that true? Or good old fake news? Mad respect. Love the show. Thank you, Joe. I think the answer is what we've been saying this morning, and I know you probably missed it, was LSU would be silly not to at least reach out to Nick Saban. However, the answer is probably about a 90% chance that the answer is no. He's 74 years old and probably not coming on. All right, before we move on, I want to play a clip from Spencer Rattler. It's a minute and 10 seconds. And it kind of, I think, helps answer the question, is the move to Shough permanent? I got to say, I got mad. I've been down at different times on Spencer Rattler, but I got to give mad props to this kid. The way that he handled himself, not only yesterday, but the way he's handled himself really throughout this whole thing, I think has been outstanding. And I think that shows that he does maybe have a future. Again, I think it's as a backup. But if you listen to what he says here, again, not just to say that I love the way he handled this, but read through the lines. He knows that his chance, at least right now, is probably over. This is all you need to hear, in my opinion, to say that I don't think they're going back anytime soon. But again, listen to how he handles himself and what he says. Obviously, the kid's disappointed, but a lot of class and a lot of proof that this kid has grown up a lot over the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, we came out of the half, didn't have a great drive, kept getting backed up. Just really couldn't catch a rhythm. And, he said, hey, we're going to go with Tyler, get a little spark, see what's going to happen. And, it's part of the game. I understand you can't control everything, but, hey, I'm going to be a great teammate. And respond the right way, be a pro about it and help in any way I can. I mean, I just go at it the same way. It's part of the game. I've been through adversity before. I'm going to be a good teammate, have good body language, still be a leader. So I just got to show up to work, keep a smile on my face, keep working. And, you can only control what you can. I've said that before. So I'll control what I can and keep attacking the same way.
Were you surprised at the decision?
A little bit, but hey, no bad feelings at all with Kellen. That's my guy. He's awesome. He's been awesome all year, and we haven't really gotten anything going on offense. The last 2 weeks, so hey, understood. Just got to show back up and figure out what we need to get better at.
Again, it's not what he said, because what he said was a lot of cliche stuff, a lot of stuff which you'd expect people to say. It's the way that he said it. I've told you all this before. I'm a big poker player. And read through the lines, look into a dude's eyes, read the body language. Everything he said there may be cliche, but meant it. So many times you hear people go up there and say crap, and they don't mean any of that crap, and you can tell, and it's easy to say. That's the kind of leader I actually want on my team. That's somebody I want on my team. I have changed my opinion immensely about Spencer Rattler over the course of the past 18 months, I guess. I never understood why they drafted him. I kind of still don't. You're not smarter than a fifth grader. I use that line often when it comes to Spencer Rattler, because I didn't understand why the Saints were drafting him, because no one else wanted him. You're not smarter than everyone else. However, that being said, I think this kid has a future. Again, not necessarily as a starting quarterback, but I want my other players around him and feed off of him. I think it's excellent the way he handled himself. And lastly, as you go forward, before we get to Gabe, talk about the future. I mean, you look at the schedule. Again, this one's tough, but look, the landing zone for Shough to get this experience against a team like the Rams. And then you have, look, I know the Saints right now, if the season ended today, and I love when people say that, but if the season ended today, the New Orleans Saints would have the first pick in the NFL draft. Here's a news flash for you. They're not going to have the first pick in the NFL draft. They're going to win some of these games. Are they going to win 5? I doubt it seriously. Are they going to win 4? Maybe not. But I think 3 is kind of the floor still. I don't think they're going to beat Miami, but they always play Atlanta tough. Would you be shocked if they beat Atlanta once? I wouldn't. Would you be shocked if they beat Carolina once? Of course not. I think I'd almost say they're
they're definitely better than Tennessee, in my opinion. And the Jets, they've got their issues, even though they beat Cincinnati yesterday. You know, you're talking about week 16, 17. Those two games might be for who's going to draft first. It's going to be an interesting scenario. You know, Chad has been wanting Shough to come in, and he says he really does root for Spencer Rattler to succeed. Of course. You know? Anyway, there's lots of things going on. We're going to talk more about the Saints probably on, and Tedder says, classy by the Rat. Small sample size. Shough made some throws that allowed Yak, except the deep miss a little bit more accurate than Rattler. He had a deep miss to Shaheed on the right side and overthrew him. And it was early, and it was one of the first 5 or 6 throws I think he made. I think his eyes got this big that, holy crap, Shaheed's wide open for a touchdown. I throw my first touchdown pass. I really think that's what's going to happen. And David +1 says, Atlanta's second guessing everything after losing to Coach Gucci. Look, Saints might beat Atlanta. Can you imagine coming home after the bye week and Shough beats Atlanta? I don't know. Not saying it's going to happen, but I'm definitely saying it could happen. All right. Time to move on. Again, we got to start wrapping up the show. We're inching up on 3 hours, and we've already broken the record, I think, for the longest Dat show ever. Again, I knew this one would be a long one. I just kind of didn't necessarily know it would be as long as it was, but here we are. And Gabe Anderson, thank you for being so patient in the background. And what a crazy weekend of football in Southeast Louisiana.
Why? What happened?
Just a few things. What happened was the trolls came out of the woodwork, and apparently they were living with the cockroaches, and they found their way out, and it's been Troll City for the most part this morning, somewhat. But anyway, some of them are gone. What's going on with you this morning? Obviously, the big news, and I'll let you go off and just into the wrong slide there. I'll let you tell me your thoughts on LSU firing Brian Kelly.
I'm going to echo what Rab said. I'm going to echo what Matt Moscona has said. And basically what every member of LSU media has said. I'm not surprised that it happened. I'm surprised how quickly it came together. And I really am. And I think ultimately Kelly sticking with Joe Sloan and his reluctance, it sounds like his reluctance to let go of Joe Sloan and his clash with Scott Woodward is what got it really kicked off yesterday. I was under the impression that it would just be Joe Sloan. You know, when Shea Dixon and the On3 crew reported that it would be sweeping changes to the coaching staff, but I don't think any of us thought it would be Kelly.
Honestly, Gabe, I'm going to tell you, I think I'm going to say I've read a couple things here and there. And again, I always like to cite, this is not a sources. I don't want to say sources are telling me. These are things that I read from people that I respect. Okay. Mm-hmm. Things that I read from in the background. I think originally yesterday and maybe even Saturday night. And yeah, I think Saturday night, Woodward said we have to have a talk is my guess. And Kelly says, okay. And I think just from what I'm hearing, I think that may have been the first thing. Like, we got to fire Sloan now. We got to move on, and you can't finish. That may have been the thing. I'm not so sure that some high influential people, maybe even influential political people, got involved. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah. And I think within about 4 to 6 hours, that had changed from we're not good enough with Sloan being fired to we can't have this anymore, and the big fish needs to go too. And I kind of think that's how yesterday worked its way throughout the day.
I don't think Kelly was okay letting Sloan go. And I mean,
that could be too.
Last week when I said this was reminiscent of Les Miles and Cam Cameron, this is not what I meant when I said that. I thought, if Brian Kelly was approached mid-season saying, hey, we got to get rid of Sloan, I thought he would have just taken a step back and said, okay, you know what, maybe it's been a huge disappointment, and then we'll evaluate him at the end of the year. I didn't think they would do this. I think it was absolutely the right move. Saturday night was not the most embarrassing moment in LSU football history. Far from it.
Oh, no.
It was not the most embarrassing moment of the last 15 years because we all remember that night in the Superdome.
Yeah.
However, I have not seen anything like what I saw Saturday night. And I'm not talking on the field. I have never seen Tiger Stadium invaded by an opposing fan base. And not only the team was not only embarrassed, the fans should be embarrassed about what happened. But I also commend all those students because I don't think, I mean, you guys mentioned the word optics earlier. I do not think that these wheels are set in motion if the student section doesn't chant "Fire Kelly" throughout the entire
as
game.
he's walking, especially as he's walking out the stadium.
Doesn't leave. Yeah, I mean, there were.
That's how you can hear in the post-game show.
High-ranking officials and boosters at that game. Obviously, I mean, the optics of it were so bad, and it just felt like. I mean, full transparency, I did not stay up much later after this game. Wasn't feeling well, but I did stay up and just go on social media for a little bit. And I thought to myself, this is the moment that everything is changing. That was when I really thought, Brian Kelly's got to go now.
Yeah.
And I think they made the right decision.
And it's funny, like I said earlier, for those who weren't listening, I was a staunch, not necessarily because I was backing him. I wasn't backing Brian Kelly. But I didn't think they were going to make the move even after the season because of all the money they were going to owe him. I thought there would be quote unquote sweeping changes and that we would go on the next year and have to do this all over again. However, I like you. I was sitting there watching the game. And at some point, when I'm watching an LSU game and we're in the middle of the fourth quarter and I start playing a game on my phone, I mean, my wife had gone off Saturday night. She had a work function to go to. Didn't get home until after the game was over. So I'm at home by myself watching the game. My girls were out too. And I start playing a game on my phone. I'm like, I don't want to watch. I'm not going to turn it off because I can't turn it off. But I start playing a game on my phone.
Car crash. You can't look
and
away.
Exactly, because I didn't want to watch the car crash. When it was over, and ESPN kept showing, or ABC kept showing the Kelly gotta go GEAUX sign, and you could hear when they're talking in the afterwards, and Reese is talking about it on there with Herb Street about what's going on, and all you can hear in the background is fire Brian Kelly. I mean, I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I think he is going to get fired. Then
what it reminded me of in a weird way?
I don't think I've ever heard. I don't know. I guess I have probably, but I don't know. That's just something you don't see at LSU very often.
No, it's something in this rivalry. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when Kevin Sumlin coached his last game and it was at LSU?
Yeah, I do.
And do you remember all you could hear in the background when ESPN was interviewing him was neck?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how those things kind of come full circle. But yeah. I mean, it was. And
the last time LSU had lost to Texas A&M at home, you weren't born yet. So I mean, it's just a sad moment to where this thing. And again, it wasn't just a loss; it was how they lost.
Yeah,
and it's just
just to comment on how they lost. I tweeted it after the game. The worst part about that, it was so predictable. As soon as what was the turning point for you? What point in the game did you realize that they're going to lose this thing?
I'm going to be honest, and I'm dead serious when I say this. Yeah. At no point, including when they led and were getting every break in the first half, at no point did I think they were going to win that football game. When I saw,
agree with you.
At one point, I think it was before they actually took a lead, Nussmeier got up and was holding his ribs. And I'm like,
yeah.
And like we were talking about, he's like, Rocky, I'm like, stay down, Rock. Stay down, Rock. Don't go back in there. Dude, you're going to get killed. Don't go back. And he kept going back in there. And to his credit, I have all the respect in the world. I don't care if you 100%. Like him as a quarterback or think he stinks or whatever his ability is, to go back in there and face. And he didn't even want to come out when they told him he was coming out with 8 minutes left and they made the switch then. They basically saving his life. And I'm like, dude, go sit down. You've done whatever you can do. And so,
yeah,
to answer your question, but I guess the final nail for me was the return for a touchdown. And I think you were pretty certain that it wasn't going to change the other way after that. They lost their heart.
So just a quick note on Nussmeier. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, and I've never been a huge Nussmeier guy. But that's purely from a football perspective. You will never hear me say one bad word about Garrett Nussmeier, the person, or his commitment
That's
to
the
this
toughest
program.
SOB in college football.
100%. I have immense respect for not only the toughness that he's shown, but the commitment that he's shown for this program. He had multiple opportunities to leave, and he didn't. And I respect the hell out of that.
You look like Joe Burrow behind the Bengals offensive line.
Yeah, that being said, if I'm Frank Wilson, one of the first things I'm doing this season as the interim head coach, I think I'm going to Garrett Nussmeier and I'm saying, hey, dude, you've been beat to shit this season.
Yeah,
let's let Van Buren. They're not going to do it. No, they're not going to. But
nor should they.
I think they should. Garrett Nussmeier's
ridiculous.
I'll
tell you this. I'm not.
That dude is getting killed.
I know people will laugh when I say this because I call things pipe dreams and pipe dream and all that. I'm telling you right now, I don't care what the line is because it's going to be something over the top, stupid, absurd. I'm going to take LSU with the points at Alabama. I think they're going to play their asses off. I think Frank Wilson is a fantastic motivator. He's maybe the best recruiter on planet Earth. And I'm not saying Frank Wilson should be considered for the job going in the future, but it would not shock me at all if LSU went to Alabama and gave the Crimson Tide the scares of their lives. I'm just saying.
I won't comment on that.
It won't be with Van Buren. It's going to be with Garrett Nussmeier.
I do think you provided a great segue because I know we want to wrap up the show, but we also do quickly have to talk about what's next.
You got about 2 minutes. So,
there are multiple coaches on this staff who need to be retained, no matter who the next coach is. I think Frank Wilson is one of them. And
he will
Corey
be.
Raymond is the other.
Neither one of those guys are going anywhere.
Well, they went somewhere when Brian Kelly took over.
So I don't know. Frank Wilson only went because I think he wanted, he got a head coaching job.
Well, yeah, Wilson got the head coaching job at UTSA in 2015, I believe.
Is it that long ago? I didn't think it was that long.
Yeah,
it could be.
He was the UTSA head coach for a while, for a few years, and then he took over.
I promise you, whoever comes in next, they're going to be told if Frank Wilson wants to stay, he's staying, and you take the job on that. I think if you want to keep
your recruiting base, Corey Raymond and Frank
both of those
Wilson
guys, absolutely,
they know better than anyone else how to recruit the state of Louisiana. They need to stay.
Correct.
They are the program.
One thing that Mike said that was absolutely true, and I think Brian Kelly's downfall. We talked about. I think you and I both agree that Brian Kelly took this team out of an abyss, and somebody didn't like me saying this earlier.
100%.
But he took this team out of the abyss and made them respectable again when they were about to head back to the 1990s and be just absolute crap again. Okay, so Brian Kelly deserves respect for that.
Yeah, he did not take this program where it wanted to be, but he certainly, and I said this a few weeks ago, I'll say it again. He said his goal at every program he coaches at is to leave it in a better place than he found it, and he absolutely did that.
Yeah, because they were in a really bad place. I mean,
that being said, you have given me a task, not directly, but indirectly, and I will attempt to do the impossible. You have asked why Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin is not the top name on my list. You used the phrase pipe dream. My pipe dream is Dan Lanning. That is.
I don't think it's a pipe dream. You're LSU. They're gonna. I know that's not a pipe dream unless he just doesn't. Honestly, unless he just doesn't want to leave Oregon.
I don't know if he wants to. He is on.
Only somebody like
right
Lincoln Riley wouldn't want to leave Oregon. I mean, you want to leave Oregon to go to LSU for the challenge because let's just put this straight. If you stay at Oregon, there's no question you're in the running for the national championship every year because you don't have any competition. And it's a lot to me. It's actually easier to win a national championship at LSU. It's easier to get there if you're Oregon. It's easier to win a national championship at LSU, in my opinion. And I think that somebody 39 years old knows he needs to take the next step in his career. And if he gets offered a pile of money may be enough to have him make that decision. And of course, again, he's got SEC background.
I will say this. I am hoping you are correct. I would love to be wrong.
That's my number one choice as well.
If we start next season and Dan Lanning is the head coach of the football team, I will be over the moon. That being said, Lane Kiffin is also one of my top choices along with John Summerall. I think they got the top three correct. And here is why. Jim, do you know how many 10-win seasons Lane Kiffin has in his tenure at Ole Miss?
4. I don't know.
He's got 3. He's on his way to his 4th. The only coach to ever do that with that program, and he didn't even do that. He just won 3. Well, he did 3 and 4, but Kiffin's going for 4 and 5. John Vaught, 59, 60, and 62. He won 10 games. That program is nowhere near the caliber that Lane Kiffin has it at.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep wanting to say that, or you keep
I don't
saying,
keep wanting to say.
No, you keep saying, what has he won? But the same thing can be said for damn near every football coach around the country. The same thing can be said about John Summerall.
That's
the same thing can be
10
said about
wins.
Drinkwitz, Lee.
You can
Keith.
talk about winning 10 wins in the SEC, and I got 3 words for you. I don't care. I watched him personally screw up. You say win 10 games. He probably should have multiple 11-win games, 12-win seasons. He has personally screwed up as many games as he's won by himself. So I'm just saying, I've watched him in game. I think he's a bad in-game coach. Is he a fantastic offensive mind? There's no question.
Absolutely.
I don't like the dude, but I'm going to give credit where credit is due. There's no question he is a fantastic offensive mind. He probably didn't mesh well. His personality probably didn't mesh all that well with Nick Saban, but there's no question that Alabama was better with Lane Kiffin there than without Lane Kiffin there.
I think if you look at Lane Kiffin, he's got a weird career arc. I think one thing he also deserves credit for is he's matured a lot. I know he's still that in-your-face, middle finger kind of guy. Yeah, he absolutely has, Jim.
I watched him the other day. He was a douchebag the other day. Again,
yeah, that's who he is, but that doesn't mean
right. I don't want a douchebag as an LSU coach.
Culture. He fits that. He absolutely fits this culture, and I think the reason that
what makes him fit this culture?
Because
not from the South.
You don't need to be from the. Nick Saban isn't from the South. Les Miles isn't from the South.
Les Miles wasn't. Don't get me started on Les Miles, but I think today, I think they need someone young, and
he's everything that LSU fans did. He talks shit. He wins. He has fun doing it. And here's the most important thing about him. Lane Kiffin has the respect and support of his players. There are former players that said they'd love to play for him. His former players love him. His current players love him. He recruits well. And I think he's ready for that next step, be it Florida, be it LSU. He's not my top name. Dan Lanning is my top
first
name,
of all, I don't think
I think Lane Kiffin.
I think it's a moot point.
I don't think it is. No.
It's a moot point because Scott Woodward doesn't want Lane
If
Kiffin.
it was Scott, okay. Matt Moscona did note earlier this morning, we don't know if Scott Woodward is making this call. We don't know if he will be the athletic director.
Matt Moscona, I love as much as I love Matt. Matt talks on things he wants to happen as if that's the way it's going to be.
We do not know if Scott Woodward will be not only making this decision. We don't know if he'll still be in his job.
He's going to be making this decision.
He's not the only one because LSU has a GM now in football. People forget that. Austin Thomas, who comes from where? Ole Miss.
I don't care.
Comes from Ole Miss. I don't think you should be as dismissive of Lane Kiffin because I think. But here's the only I don't
know that Lane Kiffin actually wants to go to LSU anyway.
No, I don't
think he likes LSU.
I don't know what Lane Kiffin wants because
just listen to
wildly unpredictable.
Yeah,
Lane Kiffin could want Florida. He could want to stay. He's going to use this to get more money from somewhere.
Of course he is.
And this, I will push back on myself here with Lane Kiffin. The reason, if LSU does want him, the only reason that they might not get him is because of the financial situation. He's making $11 million a year at Ole Miss. They're going to offer him more money because he's made them nationally relevant.
I'm going to say that
without him, they are no longer relevant as a football program.
I would also like to say, watch out for Brent Key. Because what he has done, you want to talk about winning in an impossible situation.
Yeah.
I mean, Clark Lee too, I guess, but I want someone younger than 50. I'm sorry. I know Lane's only 50.
There. Yeah. And I get it. That's in an ideal world, you get a fun young coach who checks all your boxes, who has won. I think a name, if you want to tick those boxes, and it's not Dan Lanning, I think you don't overlook someone like Kenny Dillingham. He's coaching at his alma mater, but I think a job like LSU could lure him away. I mean, it's some of the names. I will say some of the names.
Yeah, I mean, when you got to come on, looking at Koki's defense.
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree.
It's hard.
And I think Koki would tell you as much.
I mean, Kalani Sitake has got a better chance to get the job than Marcus Freeman does, and I don't think that Kalani Sitake is going to get the job either. So,
I think
I think it's going to be one of those first 6 guys, and really the first 3 guys are going to be up there, which is why if they don't get Kiffin or Lanning and they're willing to go out on a limb, I love John Summerall, and I'm sorry, but if you're going to take a chance on someone, I would love to take a chance on someone who is the up and coming and could be the next fantastic football coach. And someone's going to give him a chance. He could turn into Billy Napier, but I just think that what I've seen so far and what he's been able to do. Yeah, I think he's.
And I'll say for John Summerall, I've been a fan of his since he was at Troy. I said it. I'm on record saying it. You can probably find it.
Yeah, I heard
Tulane. When Willie Fritz left Tulane, they upgraded hiring John Summerall. I love John Summerall. I just don't know. I really just don't know what they're going to do, but I'm so excited because it's something different.
All right, we got to wrap it up. So real quickly, Gabe, as we do each week, and we thank everyone for being a part of our show today, whether it was you just watching, Mike, to everybody. Just it's been what a heck of a show. It has really been a great show, and I know it's way longer, but look, I've been watching the number counter, and we've been having a lot of people watching, so I just kept on going. But we're at a point now where I probably got to cut it off. What slide is on? What slide do you see?
It's the Monday Night Football side.
Okay, because it's not on it from my end. Okay. I am going, in fact, I'm going to do this and then do that. Maybe that'll help. There we go. I still don't see the slide, but I'm just going to assume it's there. All right. Monday Night Football tonight. Again, I can't see the slide, but I know it's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington Commanders. I know that the Commanders were a 10.5-point underdog on tonight. I don't remember I think the over-under was like 47.5. Now I see it, 47.5. There we go. Marcus Mariota in again for Jaden Daniels. We have been, I'm telling you, if you dabble at all and you're just throwing $10 out there and you're trying to make some money, I'm not telling you to go out there and bet if you don't want to bet. I don't want you to, be reasonable, whatever. But we have been absolutely on fire, not just with our own best bet picks, but really our primetime picks, our Monday night and Thursday night picks. So we have been off the chains, especially when you and I agree. And I'm interested to see, do you have a pick tonight? Because sometimes we just say we don't have a pick. Do you have a pick tonight?
Not really, but like I've said before, if I was forced to play this game, I think I'd play the under. I think Washington is going to try and run the ball and keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. I don't think they'll put up a lot of points offensively. Kansas City is rolling. I don't think they want to put belt to ass in this game. I don't think they have a point to prove. I think they're just ready to get out of this one. I think it's a foregone conclusion they're going to win. So I think it'd be low scoring.
UBN says 3 hours without a pee break. Hey man, I do play-by-play. Sometimes you just got to put mind over matter. Although when you're my age, matter is also over mind at different points. That's for sure. All right, I do have a play on this game. It's not a super strong play. It is a weak play. I am going to take the 10.5 points in the Washington Commanders tonight. I think Marcus Mariota has actually done a pretty decent job. And Kansas City, sometimes when they're playing someone that's a non-division rival, it's easy when you're playing the Raiders and you whoop up on the Raiders. Well, they're the Raiders, and you don't have to even study about them. But when you're playing an interconference game, and I don't have the numbers in front of me because it didn't matter enough to me, but I think the Commanders are actually going to go out there and play a decent game. I don't know if I like the under, but I also think they're going to try to run the ball. Part of it's going to be with Mariota. I think that little Bill McCrory has been okay. He didn't have a great game in his last one, but we'll see. Anyway, I like the Commanders to keep it tight at least until the end. So I don't think this thing is going to be a fait accompli until the final quarter. So I like the Commanders plus 10.5. I'm going to play that as well. What did I like last night? I love the over last. I hope y'all bet it with me. And
I hope everyone bet with both of us.
What was it that you were doing?
Square. It's a square.
Square pick.
Hey, you know what? Both of our square picks won. So congrats to us.
Square picks rolled. Just saying.
They did.
The squares
cleaned house this week.
Yes. So anyway. All right. We will see you on Thursday. Pick'em crew. We'll see you on Thursday this week.
Sounds good.
All right. Gabe Henderson, everybody. We appreciate him sticking in the background, sticking on this long. It's a new record, boys and girls. Y'all are part of a record. The longest data. This is episode number 433, and it's the longest Dattitude, whether audio only, video, whatever way. It's the longest Dattitude podcast in history. Now, I don't count the live draft shows that Zach and I did that, Dattitude had its logo on because we were just a part of that. This is the longest Dattitude podcast ever. Just saying. David, this is a good way to end this show today. Much love to anyone that might be impacted by the Hurricane Melissa, in and around Jamaica. And I've got to say that, I get nightmares sometimes when I see those, and I use the word special, not in a good way with this, but special hurricanes. This is a special, different kind of hurricane. And if you haven't been paying attention and you didn't look at it, all I can say is prayers. My heart is already going out to the people of Jamaica because they are about to get wiped out. This could be a storm worse than Katrina. That's how bad it is. So go take a look at it. And absolutely, David, much love to anyone in and around Jamaica. It is going to be a rough few days. They're going to be dealing with potentially a Cat 5. It's a Cat 4. And as I came on the air a long time ago, it was still strengthening. And I think it's supposed to hit land tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening. It's just been kind of meandering around the Caribbean. So anyway, what a show today. We had so much to talk about, and I think we touched it all. It was outstanding. Again, I want to thank everyone. We are going to wrap it up for this Monday finally. I want to thank, of course, Mike Detillier, who has never let me down. I mean, there have been a time or two here or there where he just had something that was going on that he couldn't do or a prior commitment. That doesn't happen very often. Usually he finds a way. And when I heard about what happened, I'm like, the first person that I texted actually was Scott Rabalais because I wanted to make sure our own guy was on. And I texted him actually before I even heard about it. I was texting with Rab and I wanted him to come on even if it didn't happen yet. But then when I found out that it actually happened, the second person I contacted was Mike Detillier. I also reached out to Gordy Rush. He couldn't do it. I appreciate we're going to have him back on the show. He hadn't been on the show in a long time. Gordy was on the show. Might have been 2 years now since Gordy was. Might have been on the show when we were audio only. Gabe, was Gordy on while we were doing this together or no? No, he says no. So maybe it was Gordy maybe Gordy came on when we were audio only. It was right around the time when we made the switch. But anyway, I want to have him on again soon. But it's been a great show. So I want to thank everyone. We hope you can join us next. As you see, and I put it in blue because it's a rare Thursday show. The last time we did a Thursday show was last year when we were doing regular Thursday shows. We used to do our Pick'em show on Thursday. We're doing it again this week. No show on Wednesday, and I am taking Halloween off. So we're moving up everything by day. It's going to be all compacted. The Pick'em crew will be here. We will talk to Zach Ewing not only about the Saints, obviously going forward with Tyler Shough, but we will talk to him about LSU and the at least the immediate future of LSU football. If you haven't done so already, and I see that plenty of you have, and I thank you, a reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. Again, usually, not this week, but usually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday live at 11 a.m. Central Time. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. You can also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. You can find me on bet.NOLA.com. You can find our Saints insiders on NOLA.com/Saints. And of course, our LSU peeps, they're NOLA.com/sports/LSU. Daryl, thank you for recognizing that we went 3-0. You be in, not so much. Just saying. A-Town A 3-hour show. You went to 2 doctor's appointments in the grocery store and still made it home in time for the end of the show. Thank you. Adam Varner, thank you so much. Chad Gage. Again, regulars, I'm sorry I didn't show all the comments like I usually do. It was a very strange Monday. We'll have a special Thursday show for you. Until then, we say, we say. Take it easy, my friends.